Executive Order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the planning board are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the planning board to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda, by tuning into cable access TV government channels, Verizon Channel 30 or Charter Channel 192, or by visiting the town's website and going to the Department of Cable Access Television and click What's Playing Live. If you're calling in from a phone, you must dial *9 in order to raise your hand. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Now I'd like to confirm that board members and persons anticipated on the agenda are remotely present and can be heard by stating the following. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Amy Paretsky?
Here.
Anthony Zaitin?
Here.
Michelle Gillespie?
Here.
Millie Milton?
Here.
And I'm Carrie Martinek. I'm chair of the planning board and I'm here as well. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Fred Litchfield? Fred? Here, you here?
Sounds like you're still muted, Fred.
Yeah.
Here?
Great.
All right.
Bob Federico?
Hello.
And Kathy Joubert.
Here.
Okay, in terms of ground rules for the meeting, I will invite each speaker on the agenda by name to make a presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to the comments of others do so through the chair, taking care to identify themselves. Each vote taken by the board will be conducted by a roll call vote. This meeting will have public comments. When the time comes for public comments, the chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and address only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, the chair will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Okay, so this meeting does have an executive session listed first on the agenda here. So I'd like to read an announcement regarding the first item on the agenda. The first item on our agenda this evening is an executive session relating to litigation. I declare under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 3 and 6, that the purpose of the executive session will be to discuss strategy regarding pending litigation concerning property at 222 West Main Street, known as Abu Construction, Inc., and KA Realty versus the Town of Northborough and Northborough Planning Board, Worcester Superior Court, Civil Action Number 1985CV0, and pending litigation concerning property at 425 Whitney Street, known as James and Leslie Shore versus the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Northborough and Starris AST, Land Court Case Number 19MISC000500, and that discussion of the foregoing in open session could have a detrimental effect on the litigating and or negotiating position of the town. So I will now ask for a motion to go into executive session under Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 3 and 6 for the purposes and reasons declared by the chair, and to return to open session at the conclusion of executive session. Would a board member like to make a motion to move into executive session? Just say so moved.
Yeah, so moved.
Okay. I'm going to take a roll call vote to enter into executive session. And then after that, we'll go into executive session. And for anyone on the line, we will be returning. You will see nothing on your screen or a note on your screen for about 15, 20 minutes. And then we will return back to open session. Okay, I'd like to take a roll call vote to enter into executive session. Millie,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Michelle,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
and Carrie is an aye. The planning board will now move into executive session. Okay. Okay, thank you everybody for waiting. We have returned to the open meeting of the planning board. Now we will move to the continued public hearing for 222 West Main Street Common Driveway Special Permit Application. The applicant has requested that he be able to withdraw this application without prejudice. If there's no discussion, I'd like to get a motion to allow the applicant to withdraw his application for 222 West Main Street Common Driveway Special Permit Application without prejudice.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Millie,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
and Carrie's an aye. Okay, so the applicant is able to withdraw his application without prejudice. Is that all you need for that, Kathy?
Yes, yes.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, next we will move on to the continued discussion and special permit public hearing regarding the site plan approval and special permit for 400 Cedar Hill Street. I'm going to move over a few representatives from 400. So let's see. I should have Rich. There you are. Okay, and Brian. Let's see. Brian, I don't see Brian. Rich, can you hear me yet?
Yes,
Is Brian joining us?
he should be.
He did,
He asked if,
go ahead, Rich, I'm sorry.
no, he had asked if I was on, so he should be there.
And he had emailed me, Carrie, during the executive session that he was, you know, he would be on shortly.
There is a Brian Kerwin in the attendees.
No, this is Brian
Mazar.
Mazar.
No, I still don't see him. Okay, we'll give him a minute. We need to get Michelle up. Michelle is hold on.
Yeah, because there's a special permit now involved with this for the outdoor recreational use. Oh, there we are.
Okay.
You should have all 5.
Yeah, we have everybody. So we're just waiting for Brian.
Brian just texted me, said he's watching and listening.
Okay, is he under a different name by any chance? There's a Brian Gwynn.
Let me double check.
Well, Carrie, if you wouldn't mind, I'll give you a 2-second summary of what you have in front of you. I know Rich will certainly go over that, but
Sure.
Where we left off at the last meeting was, based on action that may or may not have happened at town meeting this past Saturday. Your zoning article was approved that now allows indoor recreational use as an allowed use in the industrial district. So the applicant, after your last meeting, revised his application in anticipation of a positive town meeting vote, but knowing that it was, that it could have gone either way. And the revised application, which you were all sent, the plans are the exact same as at your last meeting, but the revised application is for the allowed use now of indoor recreation. And then there's a special permit because the Dover Amendment is no longer in play here. There's also a special permit for the outdoor recreational use. That's how your zoning reads, is that outdoor recreational use is a special permit. So that's what you have back before you tonight, is a special permit for outdoor, an as of right use now for the indoor, and the site plan approval and the groundwater special permit. And they've been to the groundwater advisory committee. You have a letter from Fred. I mean, we'll go over staff, information after Rich's presentation, but you should have the new, the revised special permit document and then the town engineer's review letter.
Okay. Okay, Rich, do you want to give your presentation?
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible for Kathy or somebody just to put the plan up again if you need to see it, but nothing has really changed on the plan. Nothing has changed since our previous submittal and presentation to the board. Um, like Kathy said, we were originally pursuing this under the Dover Amendment, as the indoor use was not an allowed use in the industrial district, would have required a use variance through the Zoning Board of Appeals, which has a higher standard of requirements for proving hardships and such. So since town meeting has passed, the indoor recreation has a by right use in the industrial district. We, in anticipation of that, we had resubmitted our application with a site plan review with special permit, because we are in the zone 3 of the groundwater protection district, as well as a special permit for the outdoor field, which is, like I said, this is exactly the same plan which the board had reviewed previously. We did meet with groundwater advisory committee last week. Took no exception to any of their recommended comments or conditions. They were very consistent with what we had talked about previously. And another thing that has changed since we've met is we do have an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission now. They had voted to approve this project as presented. It's the same plans that are before the board now.
Okay,
So-
I'm sorry, do you have anything else?
No, I was just going to say that's pretty much, I mean, there's really, I don't have anything else to add at this point. Be happy to take any further questions from the board or the staff members.
Okay, board members, do you have any questions?
I have a quick question. Did we get a copy of the latest application, Kathy?
Yes, it was emailed to you and also mailed to you.
Okay, so it was in that packet. Okay. I wasn't sure because I know you said disregard something at some point, and I wasn't sure if it was something in that packet or.
Well, it was just the actual set of plans in that you didn't need to review them again because the plans themselves hadn't changed. But the document, this is not as professional as, I mean, this is the document that everyone should have.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so I just didn't know, because it was mailed before town meeting, but apparently they withdrew the application prior to that, not waiting for the results of. Is that what you said earlier?
Right,
Okay.
they submitted their revised application in anticipation of it passing, or hoping that it would pass, but knowing that there was also a chance that it, wouldn't pass. And then they would have acted accordingly. I don't know what they would have done. Maybe they would have gone back to the Dover Amendment, or maybe they would have, I don't know, but
Okay.
it's irrelevant at this point.
Yeah, great, awesome.
Okay, any other questions? Anthony? Amy?
Nope. Kathy, do you have a picture just one more time of the site? I know there's a colored picture. It was put up last week for groundwater.
I can't, I tried that last time and I can't share one of my files. I had to have sent it to David in order to do it. But
Oh, I think I might be able to share.
let
me-
me just see if I can, if Carrie, if you don't have it that way, I can just show you what was, in the packet.
I have the packet. I know there's a nice colored picture. I just wanted to look at it one last time for site plan. But
I'm going to try to pull it up on my phone, and then I should be able to share my screen to you if that helps.
sure.
I'm just going to go to the planning department's website, 400 Cedar Hill.
Oh, and pull it off, yeah.
They pull it off the web page here.
Okay, so you can go into the
Let's-
July
Let's see if this
21st.
works. Yep,
Yeah, okay, the meeting materials.
Okay, I did go in there too. I don't know which one it is though.
there's one called presentation plan. If you look in there, it says 400. Hold on one second, I'll have it on my screen.
Oh, I see it. Do you want me to share it?
Oh yeah, there it is.
I'll share it. Hold on.
Okay,
Can you see it? Is that it?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
it. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
That's it.
and that's the most current one too. Yep, that's good.
Okay. Great. Do you have any questions on this, Amy?
Amy, you're muted.
I was just making sure that the final layout had the entranceway closest to the intersection. So that's just one way, and then
Correct.
in and out through the other end.
Correct.
And I read in the packet that the outdoor field does have what 6-foot high fence, and then there's nets.
Yes,
Yeah.
behind the goals, correct. There's actually a rendering that's in there as well, shows the fencing. If you go back into you can't really see it on this, but there's renderings that the architect put together. I think it's called March 17th NEFC presentation or something.
Yeah.
On the page that'll show a better idea of what the fencing will look like.
Okay. Because I know at groundwater, I brought up the retention basin in the back, but it probably won't, it shouldn't be a problem because you're going to have the fencing and the netting.
Correct. And there is a gate on the backside of the fence,
Yep.
but that's going to remain closed. That's only open for maintenance purposes. So there would be no public access to the back of that building where that
Okay.
basin is.
Yep. All right. Looks good to me.
Michelle, any questions from you?
No, I'm good.
Anthony, anything from you?
No.
I just had a couple of questions. So it looks like Fred just had a couple of additional conditions from the last memo, but that was okay. You said everything that was
Yes.
the water privilege fee, permits, things like that. That was all set. I just want to make sure everything was okay. The fire chief had made a comment about providing that pathway from the rear of the building and then just making sure there was access beyond just the one side of the building. I think we covered this last time. That was all set as well, the proper access.
Yeah. There's actually an emergency access plan that's in the file as well that shows the turning movements through the site,
Okay.
and they can drive across the field. I'm pointing to my screen like you guys can see what
I
I'm
know,
doing.
we'll go with it.
But the fire trucks can get 2 full sides access to the building, and then the third side they could get to on the adjacent property if they needed to. But they were satisfied with the access we had shown.
Okay, and then in terms of traffic, so it sounds like the prime times are really those after-school slots or those evening slots. This isn't like an all-day traffic thing or all-weekend traffic thing. Okay,
Correct.
so we talked about that, and I know you sent a report about all the traffic.
Yeah, there was numbers, and we did some calculations based on the number of fields, and it like you said, they're at off-peak times, so it should have minimal impact to the developments over there.
Okay, and Bob, I don't see you on there, but I think it's just because my screen's only showing certain people. For the sign, the proposed sign, that was all within our current dimensional abilities. That was okay, all the signage? Oops, I don't see you, Bob.
Okay. The signage is fine. You can either roll that situation into your decisions, or what has happened in the past is that just goes by the standard zoning regulations for signs in the industrial district.
Okay.
If you recall.
So that was okay. And then you had a lighting plan that you had submitted, And it looks
Yes.
like that, so that will remain the same. That was like the night lighting or the things that be pushed, the light would go down, not out. Everything's the same
Correct.
with lighting.
Correct, yeah. There was a photometric plan in there as well that showed the minimal to zero increase at the property lines, basically zero increase in foot candles around the site.
Okay, and then I think the only condition I had mentioned last time was just maintaining any landscaping in perpetuity. Was the one condition. I don't know if anyone else has any questions or if staff has anything to add. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Well, Fred just has his review letter, but I
Oh,
don't.
I'm sorry, Fred, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, it's you pretty much covered it, Carrie. But
Fred, you're on mute. Did you want to add anything or you good?
No, I think it's pretty well covered. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay. Originally, all the comments that I had were staff comments because they didn't go before groundwater. They did go before groundwater. We reiterated the same issues. I then combined some of the comments that I had in the site plan review that I had done for you the last time, and those are also listed in there. I can go through them one at a time, but the applicants already agreed to all of them, so I'm not sure if you want to listen to me just ramble on for a couple minutes or not.
Well, no, and it looks like I saw there's a memo that there's actually a reduction in the volume of runoff as a result of all the stormwater management features being installed for the project. So it sounds like it's even in
Yes.
a better position than anticipated. Okay, that's great.
Yep. And he's agreed to the permeability tests. Just want to point out to him again that we will require an earthwork permit before they can start construction, as well as the permeability tests need to be done and the results reported to confirm any assumptions made in the drainage analysis before they start any construction on site, just to make sure that the drainage can be built according to the plan.
Correct.
Okay, is there anybody attending the meeting? I'll open it up to public comments. If there's anybody attending the meeting that would like to make a comment, please just raise your hand. I saw a couple hands raised before. I don't know if it was a mistake or you wanted to speak. If you still want to speak, I'm going to allow you to talk. And then if you just state your name and address, you're able to make your comment. We're going to try to limit to about 3 minutes per comment. So we'll just try to be a little mindful of that. So I'm first going to click, there's just Michael here. I'm going to allow you to talk here. Michael, do you have a question or comment? Nope, that might have been a mistake.
He's muted currently.
You may not have one.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, we can.
Okay, great. To be honest with you, I'd like to comment on the 0 Bartlett Street, so I'm not sure if you're ready to take comments on that yet.
Oh, no, not yet. This is just for 400. So I'm going to.
Great. Just didn't want to miss the opportunity.
No problem. I'm going to put you back over. So let's see. There we go. Okay. Now I have, let's see, Jeff Turgeon is raised. I have your hand raised here. I'm going to allow you to talk here. If you have something you want to, did you have something to say about 400 Cedar Hill?
Carrie, we just need addresses too.
Sure.
When they speak.
Jeff, was your hand up by mistake? Oops, we can't hear you. Okay, Brian, you have a comment?
Again, I think I'm waiting for the other project.
Oh, okay. All right. So if you're waiting for the project, just wait to raise your hand until we get to that one.
Great, thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, David Kane, just a question. I would just want to disable them and put them back as an attendee, but I don't want to remove them by mistake. So how could I move Jeff and Brian back?
You don't need to bring them in as panelists. You
No,
can
I
just
didn't.
ask-
I just put allow to talk and it just brought them as a panelist.
Oh, all right. That's fine. That's all you need to do.
But how do I send them back? They're going to be stuck here with us. Nobody wants to be on this side of the board. David.
Not
How do
sure.
we send you back?
I don't see them as panelists. I only see them as attendees with the ability to
Oh,
talk.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. So strange. All right. Well, let's see if I can send them back. Oops, I can. There we go. Sending them back. Okay, let's see. I have Carter Brannon. I'm gonna allow you to talk here. Yeah, it brings him in as a panelist. It's really strange, David, but that's okay. Carter, do you have something that you'd like to comment on for 400?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay,
Just say your
Carter,
name and address.
Carter Brannon, 22 Sherland Drive. Just a couple of kind of small, just concerns a little bit. I guess one thing I just wanted to, just noting about just a lot of the wooded area on the site being cleared, and I just wanted to point out that has been with a lot of the development in the area over the past few years that what used to be a very open kind of open space of wooded area and stuff being cleared that kind of connects with kind of all along the Northborough Marlborough border, and just I think there is a bit of trees that are being kept on the site, it looks like, but just for I guess future concerns of the neighboring properties to try to keep some kind of connectivity between some of the open spaces.
Yep, that's a great point. Do you have is there a specific question that you're curious about, or just a comment?
That was just one comment, and then just a second kind of question regarding the outdoor turf field. I remember from I think one of the master plan meetings, there was discussion about changing Algonquin's football field to a turf field, and some people were concerned about the environmental and health impacts of the artificial turf, and was wondering if there were similar concerns that should be acknowledged about this project.
Okay, all right, great. So, Rich, do you have any comments
Yes.
on the turf? Thanks.
Yeah, and we actually discussed this a bit with conservation as well, and there's a detailed operation and maintenance plan that will be attached to this project with the stormwater management system. Basically about maintaining the turf and the chemicals, that there be no chemicals that are used on the turf. And there's been concerns in the past about the materials that are used to make either the infill or the green grass blades themselves. But the stuff we're using has all been tested and certified that it's clean material. The technology has really developed over the years on this stuff, and it's a much cleaner product than it used to be. So conservation was satisfied that nothing was going to get it either into the wetlands or the groundwater out there based on the information provided. And same thing with not only the groundwater but the wetland systems out there. So we feel pretty comfortable with the materials being used, that they're safe, and we wouldn't put our kids out there on it otherwise. So that's pretty much what I've got to say on that one.
Okay, well, it looks like we have one more. Let's see. Meg Byron, did you want to speak to 400?
I would love to, if
Sure.
you mind. Thank you guys for all you do for the town. So I currently live at 5 Weber Lane, but my family and I have lived in the Sturbrook development for 15, going on 16 years. So like Carter, I do have some concerns, obviously, for the environmental implications. I know both homes that we have lived in that neighborhood, even far back, there was always a concern with a certain salamander population, and there were always environmental restrictions. And just from, having lived in that neighborhood so long, it seems like we see more and more wildlife coming into the cul-de-sacs. And obviously, I would imagine with so much more wooded area being removed, it's going to continue to be a big problem. And it's honestly pretty sad, because we use those trails, and obviously people from all over town and adjacent towns come and park at the high school to use them. And it just seems like the proximity of the structure is going to be so close to the natural landscape. I'm just sort of trying to reconcile that in my head. So that's one concern. And then the second, and it's equally concerning, is the traffic, because it's already pretty tricky pulling out of Sturbrook Lane with the curve on Cedar Hill, or Bartlett rather. And I know with the high school traffic in the morning and in the afternoon, it especially gets backed up. So I'm just kind of curious what the plan would be to, you know, obviously keep an eye on that traffic not getting any worse than it already is, and for the safety of the high school kids that drive to and from school down Bartlett regularly.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we have a couple questions then about just traffic in general. And then when you were at conservation, was there anything of any priority wildlife habitat or anything?
Not on this site. There is some mapped habitat in close proximity to this site, but this site is considered, you know, clean from a priority habitat perspective. And like I said, this was we did get this approved through conservation, and we are respecting all their buffer zones. Didn't ask for any waivers into their no touch or no structure areas with regards to any of those issues. One of the questions they did have was with regards to the potential for the lighting impacting the critters and the wildlife that does use those wetlands around the property. And as you can see on our photometric plan, you know, there's little to no increase in the impact of the lights on the wetland systems around the site. With regards to the traffic, like we had talked about, the traffic from this is would be coming in at off-peak times from both the schools and the industrial uses in that area. The traffic counts from this site are actually, you know, probably in par with or even a little less than what could be generated off of this site from a commercial use. So we feel pretty comfortable that there's really wouldn't be any negative impact from this site on the volumes of traffic in the area.
Okay. And that's actually I think in this packet, well, let's see.
Yeah, we did have a traffic count and traffic assumptions that were made in the narrative traffic impact study statements. Yeah. This site is zoned industrial and could be used for a much more intense use than what we're proposing here. But this is we feel it's a suitable use for the site.
Carrie, the traffic impact report starts, it's on actually section 4.0.
Oh, yes, I found it.
And
Yep,
then
there's a
4.2 talks about the traffic volumes.
I see that. Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the soccer field proposal? I just want to make sure, Rich, have you heard from Brian at all? Is he joining us?
He's listening, and he's been texting me, but I mean he's satisfied with what we've been discussing.
Okay, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Did you say you did a light study or a light photometric?
There's a photometric plan that's part of the lighting plan documents that are on should be on the website as well. Musco Lighting had prepared it. It's there's a site plan with a bunch of numbers around it, that go down to like 0.0, 0.1 at the limits of the site. That's all been in there, and it's based on the lighting design as presented.
And that lighting plan was also reviewed and approved by the design review committee. That's part of, I mean, certainly that's what the planning board does too, Millie, but one of the factors that the design review committee looks at is the lighting of the site.
Okay. Yep, I see it now.
Yeah. if I can just add that when the design review committee meets, that's one of the first requirements is to ensure that they have a lighting plan and all the lighting stays on the property. Doesn't spill over outside the property.
And is that considered like dark sky or friendly? Or
Yes.
is that different because this is a intent to light during the night type things?
It's still, they're considered dark sky compliant. All the lighting is pointed down.
Okay.
And it's very focused on the field. If you look at the lighting, there's a document called NEFC lighting plan. If you look at sheet 6 of 9, that shows the foot candles, which is basically the increase in the illumination based on the lights. You can see how high the numbers are on the outdoor field itself and how quickly they dissipate once you get off the field.
Okay.
That's the intent of this. We've actually gone, our original plan had 4 light poles on the field. We're able to light it with just 2.
Okay.
And it's going to light 3/4 of the field to the levels needed. And then we have a smaller practice area on the turf that doesn't need to be lit as well. So it helps with reducing the light to the, to the property lines there.
Great. Great.
Okay. Okay, great. All right, I see a couple more questions. I have Ann Beckstrom. Ann, do you have a question about the soccer field proposal or comment? Ann, can you hear us? Okay, maybe Ann doesn't have a question at this time. And then Brad Blanchett, do you have a question, Brad?
Yes, I do. So Brad Blanchett, 6 Rodney Terrace. I am always in favor of extra athletic fields. And to be honest, this is kind of off the beaten path a little bit. But just from my personal experience, my son plays soccer at Four Kicks in Marlboro, and there's ample parking there. But there's a lot of tournaments going on. There's never enough parking during those periods, and the overflow goes to AMSA. When there's overflow parking, where is that parking going to go?
I can talk to that briefly. We had discussed this in the previous meetings as well. This site itself is more focused towards NEFC's internal training, and they will have games and stuff on site. These are 2 half-size soccer fields, 9v9 for youth play, one inside the building and one on the outside of the building. We feel, even for 4 teams on each field, 2 teams playing and overlap, there's more than adequate parking on site. But if that does become an issue, we would definitely approach the neighboring property, which wouldn't be used at the time of the soccer the games for any kind of overflow parking that may be needed. We did talk with the design review committee, or it might have been even with this board, about making sure that there's no parking allowed along Cedar Hill Street at any time, either if it ever needed to get signage done for that or whatnot. But we've studied the number of spaces here based on the use that they're anticipating and feel comfortable with the spaces being provided.
So I think we talked about this before too. Bob, what if we get people that are just parking up on Cedar Hill? That's not the best street in the world to leave your car on the road. There's no enforcement there. It's just a matter of a ticket. Like it's a police thing, not an enforcement thing.
Right. I think the police chief at one point chimed in about, unless the traffic safety committee or somebody just decides that, you need to put up no parking signs. There's no restriction for parking out there. In a lot of other ways, it's probably a good idea that these, the soccer field folks, contact the people next door Because I'm thinking, my guess is that their highest parking demand is probably going to be on a weekend. And, you know, the industrial businesses next door are pretty much a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So I would not be surprised to see some sort of an agreement allowing them to park over there. It is automatically used and accessible as emergency access for the vehicles.
Okay, but it is not within the planning board's jurisdiction to condition no parking signs. That's the Board of Selectmen does the roadways?
Right.
Okay. All right, so then, and then how would that be pursued? Would that be something that someone would have to complain to get that in place, or?
My guess would be probably if there's a traffic advisory committee here in town, in conjunction with the DPW and police, they'd probably come up with a, you know, set of regulations and propose it through those other channels. I'm not exactly sure how that works in Northborough, but I do know in Grafton, there's like a traffic advisory committee in conjunction with the DPW and the police department. And usually the selectmen go along with whatever they recommend. But like I said, the mechanics might be different here in Northborough, but you know, just about every town has some sort of a mechanism to deal with that.
Okay, great. We have one more question here from John Wickstead. I'm gonna,
Hi, can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah, just with regard to that last comment on the traffic, the parking. Like, it's ludicrous to think that the industrial place next door is going to allow people to park there for liability issues. They're not going to want anybody to be parking on their lot when there's nobody there. And I think it's silly to think that, you know, a plan for us for overflow parking is to have a business talk to another business. That's not a plan. That's just a wish.
Mhm.
I would say that, you know, the idea of them having tournaments there and the parking overflow is a real one. Anybody who's been to Four Kicks on the weekend when they're having multiple tournaments there, you know, these guys need to make their business run. And so of course they schedule as much as they can in there. And the idea of having all that extra parking, you know, with no place to put it is a real one.
Mhm.
Carrie, can we just have the address of that person?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oops, hold on, let me find them.
Sorry, 2 Stirrupbrook Lane.
Say it again?
2 Stirrupbrook Lane.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Carrie, can I make a recommendation?
Sure.
So the planning board doesn't have the authority, as Bob was indicating, to actually ask the applicant to put no parking signs on the street. That's under the purview, I believe, as he indicated, maybe of the Board of Selectmen. I mean, could it be in the decision that the planning board sends a letter to the Board of Selectmen saying that this applicant was just approved, and then for them to consider signs out there as sort of a proactive approach for it?
Carrie?
Oh,
if you,
yeah,
if you want me to speak to that. You wouldn't put that in a condition of your decision, because it's not anything that the applicant has control over, you know, as to whether or not the selectmen would act on erecting parking signs. But I mean, but you as a planning board could do one of two things. You could either, you know, you yourselves send a letter to the maybe the DPW you know, to perhaps ask them that you know, that this is something that, you know, that the board has recently approved, and, you know, can they, you know, look into that as far as, you know, no parking signs. I mean, ultimately it is up to the Board of Selectmen, and actually you would send it to the Board of Selectmen, and then the Board of Selectmen would refer it to the DPW. Another thing that you could do is, you know, have the applicant, you know, say a year from the occupancy date, which we don't know what that date is yet, but I mean, internally we will know, because the building department will issue an occupancy permit. But you could put a condition in that you want the applicant to, you know, provide you with an updated memo regarding, you know, a year from the date of occupancy, how the parking is working on the site. And then the third thing is I forgot who it was, but there was a gentleman that talked about shared parking, and that it was absurd or something, but that is something that has worked successfully in Northborough, particularly in the downtown area. There is a shared parking bylaw that some applicants have taken advantage of and worked out with their abutters. And then also on Cedar Hill, there is a property that we worked with to take on extra parking for the trails. So, you know, companies are amenable to it. But in this particular case, I think, you know, and if Rich wants to speak to it more, you all had a lot of discussion at a prior meeting about how this is doesn't operate as a fourscore. I'm not familiar, or four kicks, whatever it's called. But I think either Rich or Brian talked to that at one of your prior meetings about how this operates differently and is not loaded with tournaments. So I don't know if they want to speak to that, Carrie.
Sure. Rich, do you want to speak
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah, I had, like Kathy just said, this isn't like a Four Kicks. This is a private club that's gonna control what's going on this field. The building itself has their training facility, classrooms, restroom facilities. They're not looking to, maximize the use of these fields by farming them out, every weekend to private tournaments and stuff like that. We also did look at the parking count through the design review committee and did increase the number of spaces on site to a number, I think we added almost 10% more spaces than what we originally had on the plan, just to make sure we had enough, spaces on the site where the, overflow was not a big concern.
Okay, so if we were to put a condition of a 1-year report, what if the report comes back and says, yes, it's a nightmare? Then what? Oh, what is the teeth behind that to kind of do something about it? Is there a need to come back and present something, a solution, or what happens if it's not working out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you would do is you would ask them, if they came back with some sort of negative report or, cited that there were issues with parking, then they've got to come up with a plan to remedy that, within X amount of days or months or, I don't think you're going to go so far as to say that you want the occupancy permit, repealed. I don't even know that that's an option through the building department to take away someone's occupancy permit, but you could certainly ask them to come back with a revised plan for you.
Okay, that looks like all the comments are covered. Any further discussion from the board upon hearing any additional comments? Any thoughts on that type of condition or anything else?
I do have a question on whether they anticipate, I can't remember if there will be buses and if they need special parking areas or allowances for buses.
That hasn't come up at all in any of our discussions. I wouldn't anticipate that being a requirement. We do have, adequate turning movements on the site itself if we had to get a bus or, more towards the fire trucks. But I would anticipate if we needed a bus of kids coming on, that would be that many less parking spaces that would be used by cars potentially. But I don't think that's not a consideration right now.
Okay.
And then just to add, Brian just texted me that say, yeah, there's no brush buses anticipated on the site.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? Millie?
That's it.
Nope. Anthony?
I do.
Any
I
other
think it would.
comments from you?
I think it would make sense to, I don't know what you'd call it, but to have an annual or at least a 1-year check-in. to make sure that there are no parking issues. And this is something that's in a public forum. So, it could, hopefully work towards remedy if there was a problem as part of a condition.
Mhm. Okay. Anything else?
No.
Amy, anything from you?
Nope, I would go along with the same condition and the conditions from the groundwater committee.
Okay. Michelle, anything else?
I think the report that they would submit a year later should just not be from the applicant himself, because I think you'd want in that report like a checks and balance. Should have something from DPW and the police department saying, yes, this applicant's been there for a year. We've not had any reports of parking on the street, any issues. And then, almost similar how you have the checks and balances when you do, stormwater management things. There's a checks and balances. So it's just not the person who owns the property. There's other people that are associated with it. And those other people who would get the complaints are the DPW or the police department.
Anything else from staff? Fred, were you going to say something?
I was. The complaints would come to the police department. The DPW has no role in it unless it's a street that's already been labeled as a no parking street by the selectmen, and then they would erect signs. So any complaints regarding the parking would go to the police department.
Okay. Bob or Kathy, anything else from you? Okay, so we have a special permit here, which means we need to consider the criteria for a special permit. Starting with the groundwater special permit, we have, oops, did someone have something? No? Okay. We have 3 components of the criteria. I'm just gonna read them out loud. Kathy, would you like a vote for each item? Oops, I can't hear, just unmute there.
Oh, sorry. It's really the preference of the board. If you want to just go through all of the criteria and, you all agree with it, then take your vote, that special permit could be issued, and then go on to the next special permit.
Sure. Okay, so for the groundwater special permit criteria, for anybody who doesn't have it out, number 1, it has to meet the purpose and intent of this chapter, which is the groundwater overlay section, and will not derogate from the purpose of the groundwater protection overlay districts. Number 2, will not during construction or thereafter impair ambient groundwater quality or reduce existing recharge capacity beyond that allowed per this chapter. Will not adversely affect the quality or the yield of an existing or potential water supply. Those are the 3 criteria items for the groundwater special permit. Any discussion on that or thoughts of whether that meets what we've heard and seen in our applications meets this or does not meet this criteria?
I think the conditions and the designs that went through groundwater helped the site to meet those criteria.
Yeah, I agree. I thought so too. And I thought that just even the fact that it, in doing the calculations again, it fared even more favorably so, shows that a lot of thought was put into how to make that the best site possible, the best plan possible for groundwater. Any other thoughts on that?
Yep. Do you want me to make a motion?
Yep, for the groundwater special permit, yes.
Yep, I make a motion, we accept the groundwater, approve the groundwater special permit for 400 Cedar
Oh,
Hill.
actually, I'm sorry, Amy. We also need the general special
Oh,
permit.
it's all wrapped in one?
Yep, sorry.
Okay, I thought we were voting twice.
No, I'm sorry. Unless you don't need it as 2 separate votes, do you, Kathy? It's all the special permit criteria.
Well, you should have it as 2 because it's 2 different special permits that you're issuing. You're issuing a special permit per the groundwater.
Right, you're right. And
then the second special permit is a special permit, based on the use table for the outdoor space.
Okay, so additionally though, we need to meet the criteria of the general criteria of a special permit also for the groundwater special permit. So can we just consider that to span both sides? If it's
Well-
meeting it for groundwater, presumably it's meeting it for the special outdoor.
Right, because I mean, when you go into the the general special criteria, you know,
Mhm.
that's where you're talking about, nuisance, to vehicles and pedestrians, the, traffic, substantial harmony with the master plan. So that doesn't really apply to the groundwater. So the groundwater, those three criteria that you talked about.
Okay, but in past decisions, we've looked at all the criteria for groundwater
For the,
special.
okay, all right. I mean, you can certainly go through them.
I just want to make sure
that-
you don't specifically need them to be separate. I just want to make sure you have a good decision, that you're able to write a good decision on what we're providing.
Yep.
Okay, so the general special permit criteria, obviously, as according to our bylaws, in substantial harmony with the Northborough Master Plan. It's an appropriate location for the use. It won't adversely affect the neighborhood. There's no nuisance or serious hazards to vehicles or pedestrians. Adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided to the proper operation. Proposed use will conform to any special requirements of the special permit granting authority as stated in the decision. And the proposal could not reasonably be altered to reduce adverse impacts on the natural environment, to be compatible with historic development patterns of the town, or to preserve historically significant buildings. Any discussion on the special permit criteria? I mean, I think it's now an appropriate location for the use as of Saturday. The neighborhoods, any comments on the neighborhood? I personally don't think it adversely affects the neighborhoods. Master plan, I think we've talked about, making different uses of the land over there, and, as evidenced by the bylaw, that's something that I think the people in town want to see. So I think that passes there. I think we did talk a lot about the traffic and, whether or not that's a hazard. I think we've satisfied that with the condition that we've talked about to make sure that we can come back around and evaluate that within a year if there are any concerns. Any other comments on the special permit criteria?
Nope.
I'm all set.
I think we're good.
Okay. So, do you need for us to vote for the special permit? Yes, we need to vote for the special permits first because you need a special permit for the site plan approval. So first, is there a motion to approve the special permit for groundwater and special permit for outdoor recreational use?
So moved.
So moved. As long as we include the conditions with the groundwater committee.
Right.
Oh, okay, so I was gonna do that with the site plan. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Did
Yeah,
everybody-
we'll add it to the site plan.
Okay.
Yep. So a motion's on the table for approval of the special permits. Was there a second?
Second.
I thought you made the
I'll se-
motion.
Well, Anthony made the so moved and I'll second it.
Okay, Anthony, for the purpose of the minute, Anthony made the original motion. Amy seconded. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor, I'll just roll call. Mary,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Michelle,
Aye.
Carrie is an aye. Okay, so the special permit passes. Next, we have the site plan, and for that, we do have a couple of conditions. So we will need a motion to approve the site plan with special permit with the conditions that were outlined by all of Fred's conditions as outlined in his letter, plus maintaining landscaping in perpetuity, plus, oh, go ahead, Kathy.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, Carrie, actually, it's a special permit site plan approval, because when you have other special permits, the site plan approval becomes a special permit also.
Okay. So this is a special permit site. plan.
Right. So just so that the vote reflects that, but then, with all those conditions.
Okay, so we have to get used to this new special permit process here. Okay, so I need a motion for a special permit site plan approval. But then it also has a special permit. So I have a double special permit here. Is that okay?
Well, no, I think what you're doing now is it's a special permit site plan approval.
And it covers both special permits.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you've already made a motion on the special permit for the groundwater section, and you've made a motion on the special permit for the outdoor recreational use.
Okay.
And then now you're on your third special permit, which is in the
Special
site plan review section. It's if the applicant is getting a special permit related to the use, you also, the site plan just automatically turns into a special permit.
Okay, thank you. So we need a motion for a special permit site plan approval with the conditions that include everything from Fred's groundwater letter. Also maintaining landscaping in perpetuity. Also, a year from the occupancy, the applicant will provide an update in a memo that includes information, third-party information from police on how the parking is working on the site. And if for some reason there is an issue with parking or there have been excessive complaints to the police, the applicant will come up with a plan to remedy within 90 days. Is that reasonable? Within 90 days from the memo, from the filing of the memo.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Motion's made, seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Millie?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
And Carrie is an aye. Okay. Thank you, Rich. Oops,
Thank you.
We're sorry to miss Brian. I'm sure.
I'll let him know. No, he's been listening. He thanks you as well.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to shift over now. I need to pull over. Let's see. So we now have the continued public hearing for Zero Bartlett Street for Zero Bartlett Street special permit per groundwater protection overlay district bylaw and special permit site plan approval. And I am bringing over, let's see, Israel Lopez. Oops, I wonder if I'm going to actually bring you over as a panelist, so hold on. Okay, and I have David Robinson. Oops, did I do that right? Yep. And I don't know if Rob Najee is coming. Oops, he's there. Yep. I'm going to promote him over too. Okay, so I have Israel, Dave, and Rob, or Robert. Okay, I'm going to unmute you. Can you guys hear us okay?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. So we last left asking for some additional information. So if you want to, do you have anything that you'd like to present this evening?
I'll just start by going over the two letters that we have submitted since our last site plan review hearing back on June 9th. So we submitted a lighting memo which addresses the comments from the Conservation Commission that they made to the site plan review committee. I think we did a good job of of addressing those. And then also we submitted a memo which kind of outlines the permits and approvals that we've received for the project thus far. And I will note that there was 2 outstanding at the time that we submitted them, which were site plan review committee, site plan approval, as well as the 8M permit from the MWRA. So in the interim, we have received that 8M permit from the MWRA to cross the aqueduct. And so the only outstanding permit that we require at this time is the site plan approval. We did close out with the Conservation Commission on June 29th. So that's where we stand now.
Did we get a copy of the MWRA? I didn't see that in the folder. Kathy?
No, well, no, what you have, I mean, we have it, but the Conservation Commission received it. And what you have is the memo that David was referring to that talks about when it was issued.
Oh, right. But do we have an actual copy of the letter?
I didn't send you a copy, no.
Okay. Is it under conservation? Like, do they have an online repository like we do?
I believe that, yes, I believe that Mia does have one. Probably on the Conservation Commission page.
Okay. Oh, okay. I don't think she posts stuff like that. It doesn't look like. Okay. Okay. All right. So go ahead. So those are the 2 outstanding.
Yep. And I should note that the site plans have not changed since the June 4th ones that we submitted, and we discussed them at the June 9th hearing. So nothing's changed or been submitted besides those 2 letters.
I just had a quick question. Is there a master plan for the final build out of this area? I know it's been mentioned before. A lot of us are new on the planning board, and I've been on it a couple years, but I look back on past minutes and they talked about a master plan for the area.
Yeah, this is Israel Lopez. I think what's happened in the past is there've been under other projects, there's been a plan that's highlighted all of the various parcels in the area with proposed projects. All of those projects at this point have been substantially either started or completed. And if that's really not obviously not the subject of this site plan approval, those projects and parcels are under different ownership. In fact, the soccer field that was just before the committee a few moments ago was one of the original parcels going back 20 years that were part of the original master plan. So I think at one point or another, many of those parcels in that area have been developed.
I guess a concern that I had was, as you know, we received the subdivision plan for our next meeting or 2 meetings from now. And a lot of the discussions about this site plan were about the whole parcel, and now it looks like it's being subdivided into 2. And my concern was, if this is subdivided, are you still building this warehouse on this site? Because
yeah, we are requesting approval for the site plan approval for the building as proposed on this site. The subdivision of the lot, which is really a separate approval from this approval, merely subdivides the different parcels that are part of this site.
I guess what confused me when we look at this site plan, we talked about 13 13 acres are going to be part of the conservation restriction, and the frontage is 472 feet. But now if it's subdivided, we lose the frontage gets cut off. Is a conservation restriction still on this parcel, or is that on the new parcel? I feel like, you know, all the things that were promised for this site plan sound like they might be getting cut off.
No, and again, two separate approvals that really stand alone separately. But the subdivision plan that was filed is totally consistent with what we're, with the site plan that is the subject of this approval. So the lot that that site plan sits on, the building will sit on its own lot. All we're doing with the preliminary subdivision plan is subdividing those lots. The conservation restriction that you mentioned, that is still totally applicable. That will not change. You know, the lot can be carved up in any way that we want. And in order for it to be a buildable lot, then it obviously has to meet site plan guidelines and zoning bylaw guidelines. But in terms of where those lot lines are internally, it doesn't change the project. But again, totally consistent with the site plan that's before you today. That building will sit on the same lot. It is our intention to construct that building at some point. No user has been identified, as I think we've mentioned a number of times. And so there may be some changes to this site plan. And if there are in the future, we would be back before the planning board with any changes.
I guess my concerns were it would lose its frontage. Its frontage gets cut off, and the amount of open space that's listed, now that changes. All the numbers change because the lot is going to be cut in half. So all the things that we're making the decision on today wouldn't actually be the same. It would be cut in half, and then all the promises that were made are not really still applicable. I guess that's what I'm confused about.
So just one clarification. Actually, what we're doing by the creation of the subdivision plan is creating frontage for the project. So right now, the project, as you can see, sits on the other side of the aqueduct. So that aqueduct bisects those two sites. So the frontage for this building is actually off of on the other end along Bartlett. Yeah, there on that tail end, actually. Yep, right where that cursor is sitting. So that's the frontage. And of course, that frontage there is not actually accessible, through the site plan, because that area is conservation land, which is going to continue to be conservation land. And so what the subdivision plan does is actually create frontage on a new private way. And again, so what we're actually doing is kind of the opposite of what you're suggesting, which is getting rid of the frontage. We're actually adding that frontage. And everything else, lot dimensions, all of those, all of the requirements to build something on that subdivision plan will be met if we ever act under that subdivision plan.
So if it went forward, out of those 4 lots, how many of them are developable? 3?
I believe 2 of them will be developable, including the subject lot that is the subject of the site plan approval.
So H1 and H2?
Correct. Yeah, H1, Dave.
H1, H2, and B2, and technically, well, H2 is the one that we were just talking about, has the access to it. So that's largely, that access is in a CR. So it's buildable, but not accessible, if that makes sense. And B1, which is the lower left lot, sort of to the west of the driveway, I don't believe is buildable.
Mm-hmm. But H2 would, if you got the access road?
Right. It could, right. There is buildable land on H2 and it does meet the zoning requirements with regards to minimum lot size and frontage. But the issue is that there's frontage, but you'd have to go through the CR, which is held in perpetuity, to physically access the site. So you could access it, you could potentially access it from the H1 lot.
Dave, can you put up on the screen which H1 and H2, just for reference, please?
Well, that's.
Or I don't know if whoever was sharing this.
So that's a different project.
Yeah, right, fine.
We don't have those queued up.
Yeah, that's fine.
I guess if you did the subdivision first, H1 right now would become a landlocked, because the frontage that you're using comes off of the east side, but you're asking for an access road to make the frontage. According to the application, the frontage is way over where the CR is, even though it's not the frontage you're going to use.
I'm sorry, I don't have those plans in front of me. I wasn't prepared to discuss the preliminary subdivision plan filing at this evening's hearing.
Right. I guess it really, when I received it, it changes a lot on this site plan, because a lot of the promises that were made would now be subdivided off.
Okay.
I guess I'm not understanding which promises you're referring to that are not going to be kept. I mean, what we're doing, yeah, maybe I'm not sure what that means.
Well, I guess this lot right now is 59 acres and 31 of them are wetlands. And a lot of the reasons why this would be a good site is because of the CR land and the open space.
So if I can just jump in real quick on the CR, we've received our amended CMP. The CR is a done deal. We can't go back on that. That's already been vetted with NHESP. We have the permit. We received it on May 7th, and we've also closed out with Conservation Commission. So that's never going away. That's set in stone at this point. Correct, Israel?
That's 100% correct. We are not proposing to change any land area that was proposed that has already been committed for conservation purposes.
Did you have other questions, Amy?
With the CR land, though, would it be subdivided off? It wouldn't still be on H1. It'd be a different parcel.
All of the CR land currently, as it sits today, is already on different parcels. So there are lot lines that cross through the existing CR land as it sits today. So the subdivision, the further subdivision, doesn't change the boundary lines for the CR land.
Okay. I just had a question. When you went for the 8M permit, I don't know anything about 8M permits. Did you have to let the state know how wide the road was going to be, the access road, or is it just a blank statement asking to cross the aqueduct?
No, we submitted the same site plans that we've submitted to the town, that the planning board has looked at. These same site plans that are on the screen now were submitted to the MWRA along with a detailed analysis of that roadway crossing.
So right now it's 24 feet. If it went to the subdivision road of 50 feet, does it have to go back for a new 8M?
So if I may, the 50 feet wide is just the right of way. It would still be the same 24-foot wide road. It's just that you have to provide a right of way, which is really just a property line on either side of the street. That's 50 feet.
Right. Okay. With the 8M too, did you have to give them a traffic analysis, or?
No, Israel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe what they're most concerned with is what is the heaviest vehicle that's going to be crossing over their MWRA line, or in this case, it's the aqueduct. So it's more about the loads and not necessarily, how many vehicles per day. I think it has to do more with what's the greatest expected load for crossing it, so that they can make sure that's just structurally sound. And we went through that entire exercise. It took several months, and we were issued our permit a couple weeks ago.
Carrie, Carrie, if I can just add about just information that may or may not help you, Amy, but I think it should help you. We as the town have had to apply for 8M permits, and it's just all about exactly what David just explained. It's all about crossing the aqueduct and what it is that you're going to be, crossing with. Is it equipment? Is it foot traffic? We've done a couple for the Trails Committee, and it is a pretty lengthy process, and plans that you have to submit, site plans for what the crossing is going to look like, and again, what you're going to use it for. But a traffic study is not part of it.
So would it be different if it was like one warehouse versus 3? Like if it goes to 3 warehouses, do you have to go back and get a new 8M? Or no, it's just done with load?
That I don't know. David or Israel might be able to answer that.
Israel,
unless the construction of the road required to be changed because the use required that for any reason, then we might have to submit something to the MWRA to request a reconfiguration of that roadway. But if just by virtue of, let's say, an additional car crossing, that's not something that the MWRA is concerned with or contemplating with respect to their 8M permit. It's kind of the same difference. Let's say, so currently the town of Northborough has an 8M permit that the Conservation Commission uses to access the trails that are used, which run along the aqueduct. And so if all of a sudden 50 more, travelers walked along the aqueduct, along that trail, the MWRA wouldn't all of a sudden require the town of Northborough to provide some additional information because there's more foot traffic, traversing their aqueduct.
So I just have just clarification. How do you know how heavy if you don't have a tenant in there, how do you know what the heaviest weight will be?
Yep, so that's a good question. That's one that we vetted with MWRA. So it turns out that the heaviest vehicle that would need to cross that is a fully loaded large cement truck. And so that's to pour the concrete for the foundations. And so that wouldn't change, that wouldn't change significantly, whether there's one building or 3 buildings. So that's what they look at as the heaviest scenario, which is that cement truck. So it's really not the semi trucks or the passenger traffic. It's the construction equipment used during the construction process.
Okay. All right. Were there other questions? Amy, did you have any other questions, or do you want?
I have a couple, but if someone else wants to ask theirs first, I can come back.
Okay. Michelle, do you have questions?
I did. Can we go back to the original rendering that had where you were outlining the new parcels and red? I think it was, you're right here. So just to understand how this all came about. So as I'm looking at this, your frontage is further down on Bartlett Street. We originally, when we approved the plan, it was now where the back of the property is, where you're now creating it to be the front of the property. But yet on that front of the property, you're not going to use it as open space. You're planning to use it as you're planning to subdivide those into parcels, residential parcels, right?
Not residential parcels, just
No.
Parcels.
No.
Just to clarify, the frontage has always been in that area.
Yeah.
So previously, it was that frontage. If we were going to subdivide it, we'd pretty much just split that at half, and it has the minimum frontage required. So the frontage is in the same area. It's just if we were to do the subdivision, we would just be creating property lines that would run through the middle of that. So it's in the
So
same.
where your arrow is, that's frontage. Now, if you take your arrow all the way back to where the aqueduct is, that's a new parcel. And this is not going to be residential subdivision. It's a commercial or industrial subdivision.
Industrial.
Industrial subdivision, okay, okay. And so you're doing that to get 2 additional buildings in here, whatever you can figure at the time you can get in there down the line, right? That's what you're planning on doing?
There's really
You're
only
gonna
one.
build out this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you have an additional question, Michelle, or was that just clarification?
No, I
on
was
that?
just trying to understand what they're thinking about doing. And so do you actually anticipate or know what the sizes of those buildings might be? Or you haven't
No,
figured it?
at this point, what we're doing is we're just creating the, and again, not this site plan submission, but preliminary plan submission, which is, of course, subject to change.
Right.
We're just subdividing the lots. I want to go back and clarify what was stated earlier with respect to H1 and H2. There will really only be, in any kind of plausible scenario, 2 buildable lots, one of which is the existing one that's before you this evening, and the other one which would be along Bartlett Street. The bifurcation of the large lot that sits north of the aqueduct, which is going to be split into 2 lots. One of those lots is almost entirely conservation land, which has already been approved as such and will remain as such in perpetuity. So there's really only one buildable lot north of the aqueduct, which is the proposed parcel H building. And then at some point in the future, there's a developable lot along Bartlett. At this point, there have been no designs or anything done. The buildable area, is at this point just based on setbacks from the aqueduct, from the property lines, rather.
Okay.
Anything else, Michelle?
No, I was just trying to, it's so much easier when you're in person. It's difficult here. So I was just trying to actually figure this out, but he explained it the best he could. And I was just curious on what the size of the building would be, but he said it has to adhere to the setback. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay. All right. Millie or Anthony, do you have questions at this time?
I think this was addressed, and just if I could just ask again, so there's B1 and B2. Are you planning? I didn't hear, I didn't understand. Is that something you were planning on potentially doing something on at some point or never?
Well, currently we don't have any plans to develop these lots, and maybe just a little bit of historical perspective, might help. This particular lot has been in some kind of development phase for about 20 years. So this site was purchased about 20 years ago, along with other sites which have subsequently been developed. It's an extremely long development cycle. And so it's not uncommon to subdivide a site, create buildable lots, and then develop them in phases over the future. And so it could be 20 years before there's another development on that front lot. Right now, we just don't know. And I just wanted to make the point that the creation of these lots is not uncommon. It's how this entire area has been developed over.
Okay. And there was also mentioned about conservation. Where does there's parts of this that are conservation and you can't use? Where does that sit?
Sure. I mean, Dave, if you want to show if you can share your screen, we can put up the conservation. I think the conservation plan was included in the plan set that we submitted.
I'm going to stop sharing. Dave, do you have the ability to share?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just thought you didn't. That's why I was doing it for you.
1 second. Just give me 1 minute here. Okay.
Yeah, and Dave, while you're bringing that up, I'll just add that in terms of the amount of land that's been developed or that's been contributed for conservation purposes, it's 43 acres in total. You know, out of, I believe it might have been 175 or so that were part of the original land for this area. So 43 acres is a significant amount of land, and that's just conservation land. That's not wetlands. That's conservation land. And so, yeah, so the area in green that's shown there is what's being added to the conservation land bank, let's say, from this project alone. So prior projects have contributed the other areas that are shown in the hatching, correct? And the green that's shown there is what this project is contributing.
So the green, just to clarify, that's the 13?
That's correct.
Scoop is a 13. And then the ones that are hashed off makes the full 43 if you add. Okay.
Correct.
And then if you're to look at, oh, I see. So that's already been, wait, what's in hashtag can't be built on?
That's correct. That's already been conserved through the same document and the same mechanism and process that we're undertaking for what's in green. And so that's land that's all conserved.
Okay.
Technically, so, and I'll just point out this other kind of nuance, but there's a little kind of donut. Yeah, that area that is being highlighted currently is not part of the conservation land. It's outside of our property, so we don't own that land. But regardless, it acts as conservation land because it is landlocked on all sides by conservation land. So, and that's not included in the 43 acres that I just mentioned. So, you know, that's probably another, I don't know, Dave, maybe another 3 or 4 acres.
Yeah, it's probably 3.5. Yep.
So can you just scoot over a little bit now to the main site? There we go. Okay.
Right.
So what's in, you obviously can't see my cursor. So right in front of the building, that none of that is conservation. That's just wetlands in front of the building.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as you can see, that wetland also dips down into the parcel that's below that will become a separate lot. And so the developable land there will be just in between whatever setbacks are allowable in between the roadway and the wetland buffers there. So that'll be a very small buildable lot.
Yeah.
And the only resources on site, there's no riverfront, there's no endangered species. It's just buffer to wetland here. State buffer, 100 foot, and the local setbacks. So that's not in riverfront. There's no NHESP on this area. It's just wetland.
All right. So Amy, did you have another question?
Yeah, I guess my question would be if the lot below building A, which becomes H2, is all wetlands and it's not developable, what is the purpose of breaking off H1 and H2? If you can never develop on H2?
We just want to create a separate lot. And that preliminary plan that we've submitted is just that. It's a preliminary plan. So, you know, that may change.
Is there any section on H2 that is developable outside of the wetlands?
Dave, you might, you know, pan over the area that's upland, but yeah.
I mean, there's really not, because it's not accessible without going through prime wetlands or CR area.
Right.
Technically, it meets all the zoning, but no building could ever be built out there based on the resources and the CR areas, especially the one that we've just created.
Okay. I guess one of the things that they talked about conservation, I'm not saying you would ever do it, but because I listened to the conservation, one of the reasons they wanted the water to sheet off the building into the wetlands was to keep them wet because sometimes they do dry out. And then say 25 years from now, it is developable. But I'm assuming, according to the conservation, that's not going to happen because the water is going to sheet forward.
That's correct.
Yep. I just didn't know. I just didn't know
Yeah.
why. I guess I'm trying to understand why you would subdivide the lot if you're never going to build on it anyways.
So would you see like a basin or catch basin or anything like that? Like how groundwater wise, like what's going on here? And
Well, are we talking, so again, the preliminary subdivision plan is just.
no, sorry, not
okay.
related to the subdivision.
Okay.
Like for this, right, what we're looking at here.
Okay.
I can explain the drainage quickly. So the drainage has been vetted by Engineering, Conservation Commission, the Groundwater Board. And basically we're just very standard design. We're running catch basins down this access aisle. There are catch basins proposed in this parking lot here. And then there's a few here at the truck court. It all is, it's all channeled into a closed pipe system, very standard. Catch basins with deep sumps and hoods, drain manholes, and then we use structural water quality units to treat the water for hydrocarbons and total suspended solids before discharge to these two basins. One basin is shown here, that's a large basin. This handles the entire building roof as well as the truck court area. And then there's another smaller basin here, which handles the standard parking area. So it's a very standard closed pipe system with two surface basins. And then additionally, what Amy was getting at previously about the wetlands drying up, we vetted this with conservation, and what we discovered is that this strip of land along the wetlands really contributes a significant amount of runoff to the wetlands. And additionally, if you can see here, we worked with conservation to propose basically a water quality unit with a graded inlet. So water will run down the driveway here into this catch basin, pipe through this pipe that's grayscaled here to a flared end section with riprap, and will basically treat this area of the wetlands, which is the highest in elevation, so it gets the least amount of flow. The water always sits in the low points in the wetlands. So we've done a pretty substantial job of working with conservation. It took a couple months to get that together, to make sure that they were okay with their level of comfort was okay with what we were proposing, to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, are there other questions from the board? Millie, did you have a question at all? No, there you go.
Okay. No, we are going to see this plan as a subdivision coming up, right? Was that on our agenda for today, or is that just something that unfolded?
No, that's something in August, later in August.
Okay, I thought so.
Do you have any comments or questions about what we're looking at, or?
No.
Okay. Michelle, any other questions?
No.
Amy?
I'm good.
I guess I have another. My other question had to do with the access way around the building. Is that gravel?
Yes.
Because right now you can access two sides of the building by pavement, but the back and the east side are all gravel. Will that be plowed in the winter? Or is that going to just stay gravel?
Israel, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
You can answer it. I mean, go ahead.
My understanding is that similar to the Hayes G project, which we're proposing the exact same materials, and actually this one's a significantly wider than Hayes G. That was something that we vetted out with the design review board. We did also go through the cross-sectional detail of the compacted gravel path that we're proposing around the building. It will be maintained in the winter, with a snow blower or something like that.
Only because that was discussed as access for the fire, right? The fire department.
So we did vet that with the fire department. We met them at their fire department and went over it with the chief back in October or November. And what we decided is that we added, if you see this nice wide compacted gravel way along the third side of the building. So clearly we have access at the front of the building here. We have sufficient access all the way along the long side of the building here. And then typically they look for 3 out of 4 sides for a building, something that we did vet with the fire department. And this was widened significantly so that we could accommodate a fire vehicle here. There's a guardrail here for safety as well. So we did revise the plans to the fire chief's satisfaction.
So that would have to stay clear.
Yep.
So clear of snow, just not snow beyond just someone snow blowing it periodically. It has to be cleared all the time.
Correct. Yes. And also I just wanted to add that it was a topic of fair amount of discussion at the design review board. One of the members asked about snow removal specifically. And we did make some changes to the plan to accommodate their request.
Okay. So Kathy, I don't know if there is a different letter, but I only saw letters from the fire chief that reference a December plan, but we have 2 subsequent site plans since whatever letters I could find. So is there a more updated letter from the fire chief that references the right site plan?
No, I have the most current review letter from him is December 31st, 2019. But like David said, they had addressed, and he didn't even have this in his review letter, but when they met with him, he asked for that material to be on the sort of the northeast side of the building, and that was added.
Oh, okay. I don't have any, I only have him referencing the site plan from December.
Right, that's, yep, his December 31st letter.
Okay, so, but if they've made modifications, I would want to know that he's looked at the most up-to-date site plan and sees this and thinks that's okay and all of that.
Everybody receives a copy, you know, when revisions are submitted, and if they have comments, they forward those to me.
Okay, so do you have them on file somewhere, just not posted online?
No, I don't have any additional comments from the fire chief.
Okay, the only thing is, so the letter I have, if we're to ever go back in time, there's no record that he's looked at the most up-to-date site plan. So he says, I don't know if that matters.
I think if anything, I'm sorry, if I may just add that, if anything, the plans, all of the widths of the access ways have all widened since the initial plan. So nothing's become more restrictive than it was originally.
Okay, I actually have some questions about traffic. So in looking at the traffic plan here, I have a few questions about that. So the traffic plan itself is from, it looks like it was conducted in October 2019.
That's correct.
Okay, and does it reflect any of the any possible, in looking at a range, it looks like there's some other developments included in the future calculations, but it's not clear that any of the empty warehouses are included in that analysis. Is there, I guess, 301 taken into consideration or any of that?
Yes. So what we did was we looked at, I think there's like 5 or 6 other developments that we knew were going to be coming online at some point in the future, factored in the traffic conditions for those, and then added a percentage of additional growth onto the roadway to try to factor up for vacant warehouses, for new residential developments that may come along over time. And those were all factored into the sort of future traffic volumes that potentially could exist out here on Bartlett Street.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Rob or Robert, what do you go by?
Rob, I go by Rob.
Okay, thanks, Rob. So I see the things that are listed here, the 5 different, in terms of future development or what could impact. But we have now 2 large warehouses that don't have tenants or half or quarter tenants. We have another warehouse possibly coming on 1 Lyman. We have a soccer field down the street. So I feel like the street has significantly changed or can change from the October 2019 analysis. I'm just not sure this is a realistic view, specifically a future view. We don't know the tenant for this one. We don't know the tenant for 2 other giant warehouses. How do we really get a snapshot of what the traffic will look like on this street?
So obviously those new projects came along after we had submitted this project and didn't have the crystal ball to sort of see the soccer field coming along.
Right.
And a few other things. What we did for this particular project here is we used a generic warehouse type use to try to generate traffic for it, to try to identify how much traffic would likely be coming and going from it. We used national guidance standards to identify, based on the square footage of the building, the use of the warehouse like it is, to try to factor how much traffic would be coming to and from this project particularly. If there's a need to look at additional traffic growth in the area resulting from warehouses, to be honest with you, those are going to generate on the order of probably anywhere between 50 and 100 more vehicles out on Bartlett Street, depending on where their driveways are. It may or may not impact this side of Bartlett Street. But those additional cars would be captured to some degree in the additional growth rate that we added on top, that sort of generic growth rate that we added on top. And anything beyond that, I would hope that they would end up capturing themselves in any new development that might happen.
Okay, and then one thing in here, I noticed there were some recommendations in here for us needing some signals, traffic signals.
Yep. So
could you just talk to that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things that we had done, and having done a little bit of work out here on Bartlett Street and over the city line in Marlboro, we're very familiar with the traffic conditions on Bartlett Street, and wanted to take a look to see if a traffic signal was warranted at the intersection of Lyman Street and Bartlett Street, or at Cedar Hill Street, further down the roadway there. Traffic signals can help, obviously, traffic flow, safety, and a couple other elements of things that happen out here. But they can also hinder things. So the state mandates certain traffic thresholds have to be met in order for a traffic signal to be constructed at a particular intersection. So what we did was we looked at the existing and the future traffic volumes that could happen out here, and tried to identify if either of those two intersections rose to the level of traffic volume that would indicate a traffic signal would be needed. And in both cases, while they're closer to being needed than they were 4 or 5 years ago, the last time we did an in-depth study of those, they still aren't quite at the level that requires to be met in order for a traffic signal to be put in there. So I wanted to sort of pre-answer that question, because we knew that that was going to be something that the town was going to ask us, to be honest with you.
So then, again, I would make the same point. How we may be closer than we think to signals if we don't really have an accurate picture, or we're missing three giant tenants now. How do we?
For Lyman Street, we weren't as close as I might have just made it out to be. Very familiar with Lyman Street. I drive it regularly on my way to Teamworks, or I mean 4 Kicks in the area. So very familiar with that. It's while the peak periods do see some congestion on Lyman Street trying to make a left turn out onto Bartlett Street, the numbers there aren't really getting that close to needing a signal down there just yet. Cedar Hill Street, on the other hand, is an intersection that's getting a little closer there. This applicant, I want to say a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, spent some money at that intersection, cleaned it up. If you're familiar with the intersection, they've put some, used to be a sea of pavement out there, and they put some traffic islands out there to clean it up. The numbers over there, while they may be getting closer to the need for a traffic signal, still probably, even with the soccer field development going in there, probably won't make it. But more to the point, the delay on that particular intersection there, now that it's been cleaned up a little bit, it doesn't rise to the level of needing a traffic signal either at that location. I think the geometric improvements that went in down there made that intersection a lot safer than it used to be, where it was the full wide open area of land. I'm happy, I think, long-term here to continue to watch that intersection for the town. I have a good working relationship with Kathy and Fred, and we'll continue to provide traffic numbers to them in the potential future need for a traffic signal down there long-term that the town can maybe consider at a future date.
Okay, 2 more questions on traffic. So Bartlett Street and Cedar Hill were considered one of the big zones. Obviously, you just mentioned the work that was put there. And it looks like you did a lot of your analysis during peak time, But then 7 out of the 11 vehicular crashes happened at other times during the week. So how do we account, like what's happening off peak? That's a road where a lot of, I think the
Yep.
kids drive to high school.
Yep.
So
No, I definitely, I saw some of the comment letters that came in on the project, and I'm, again, going back to my knowledge of Bartlett Street. As a straightaway and a major roadway leading to and from Algonquin, certainly I know that there's a concern about the student drivers and the truck traffic that exists out there today. So everybody is aware, I think there were 23 reported crashes over the past 5 years on this stretch of roadway between Lyman and Cedar Hill Street. Interestingly, only one of them involved a tractor trailer truck, and that was when he or she was turning onto Lyman Street off of Bartlett Street. It just happened to clip a car that was waiting there. The rest of them, for the most part, is just minor running off the road or avoiding, to some degree. I read through the accident reports, avoiding what's the word? Wildlife who were on the street. And then there's a couple of minor fender benders at each of the Lyman Street and Cedar Hill intersections that are more associated with cars hoping somebody was going to go and not, and then rear-ending them at those locations. Bartlett Street by itself, because of the layout of it, does lend itself to have a high speed limit on it. I believe it's posted at 45 miles an hour. And that, I think, is one of the things that the town should take a look at. We did a speed study out there to try to identify how fast cars were actually driving out there. Not surprisingly, the 85th percentile speed is a little lower actually than 45 miles an hour, but on that stretch of roadway there, that does seem to be a pretty high rate of speed, especially when you're mixing in, I think, some of the younger drivers out there. I would encourage the town in this particular case, maybe to take a look at the speeds along that road and maybe consider lowering the speed limit out there, going through the state study to do that, just for the reasons we had talked about. As you come around Bartlett Street from Lyman Street and you head towards the school driveway, it shifts down to a slower speed as you come around the corner there. There's no reason why you couldn't reduce the speed limit along Bartlett Street itself to be a little bit more consistent with sort of the transitional nature of the industrial to the local network there.
Okay, and just one more question on this. So you recommended to minimize potential impacts at the site driveway, you recommended either a wide single exit lane or 2 separate turning lanes with an exclusive left turn lane. How does that work with the access road if it's only 24 feet wide? How do you get 2 lanes in there? Is that possible, not possible?
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure, and having seen and observed some of the other driveways out here, the commercial driveways out here that are handling a lot more trucks than this site will handle. One of the things we wanted to make sure was that trucks were not being forced to sort of drive over the turn, not the turn line, but the center line of their driveway, which would then create some congestion at the driveway entrance onto Bartlett Street. So our recommendation there was really to provide a wider exit lane, or 2 separate lanes, one turning right, one turning left. What we ended up settling on, Dave and myself and the team ended up settling on, was a wider driveway. So actually the roadway itself is 24 feet in width for most of the limits there. But as you get to Bartlett Street, it actually widens out to 28 feet, 2 14-foot lanes, which I think meets the intent of what we were trying to do, is to try to make sure that any tractor trailer trucks, and again, this isn't the same kind of development that's across the street at FedEx and A. Dewey Pyle. This is more of a warehousing type use. You're not going to see the same level of tractor trailer movements coming in and out here. We just wanted to make sure that there was enough width in that roadway, in that driveway, so that trucks could turn out and not impede anybody who wanted to come in, maybe make a right turn in, for example, at the driveway. And I'll go on to Al, actually, if I can just opine one more minute here. The other thing that we made as a recommendation out there is that the owner and the user, the final user, whoever that ends up being, work with their commercial drivers to orient traffic to and from the 495 interchange area through Marlboro. We recognize that Lyman Street is a direct connection to Route 9, and there may be some desires for some truckers to go in that direction. But given the nature of the use and some of the other uses in the area here, there's really not a need for truckers to be going down through Route, past the high school and down Route 20. to maybe work with them to make sure that there's a clear direction given to them that the easiest way to the regional highway network is taking a left out of the driveway, not a right out of the driveway. And that's another recommendation that was put in there. And I think that's consistent with some of the other uses that are out on the roadway as well.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Any other questions from the board? I can't see everyone at the same time, so looks like nobody. Just stick your hand up if you have any questions. Okay, any other additional comments from staff? Okay. Okay, so I would like to take public comments, but we also received several different letters today that I just want to quickly address and acknowledge. One person has asked that we actually read his letter. Well, actually, I guess asked the Board of Selectmen to read his letter and was directed our way to read his letter. So I think everybody's received copies of these letters. Does everyone have copies of the letters?
Yes.
Okay, Kathy, the applicants also received copies? Okay, good. Okay, so just to kind of cover these pretty quickly, I have a letter from Rachel and Richard Armstrong at 10 Hemlock Drive. They submitted concerns about safety of location, impact of environment, being close to the high school with new drivers, the intersection of Lyman and Bartlett as a general hazard, students coming from Southborough, increased traffic with decreased visibility, damage to the road from additional trucks, the dwindling home of wildlife, environmental contamination and pollution, negative safety and environmental impact, and worry of real estate. We received a letter from Erin Tagliaferri at 32 Hemlock Drive, summary of concerns, burden on groundwater, impact to environment, wildlife, and traffic, not in line with the town's master plan, future environmental impact. We're already seeing wildlife in the neighborhoods, traffic, schools nearby, large scale impact on neighborhood, environment, and wildlife. Kathy, are these also posted online, by the way, so that anyone from the public could see these?
No, they haven't been posted yet, Carrie.
But they will. Okay.
Yep, they will be. Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm just summarizing what I see as exact points. I'm not paraphrasing, so you can always go and look at these as well. Ruth Reeve, 18 Juniper Brook Road, had concerns of deforestation, wildlife, close to the high school, traffic, more trucks, size and scope of the project. It's a detriment to the trails and walking. The access has concerns of the access point over the aqueduct. Liz Nolan sent a letter from 43 Ridge Road. She had concerns about not knowing who the tenant is, traffic, speeding, high school, new drivers, the issue of lighting, the issue of noise. Actually, a good question that I want to circle back to is if tree removal, as we remove the trees there, does that have an impact on how the noise carries to the neighborhoods? Just general distraction from general beauty and nature. A letter from John Wickstead on 2 Stirrup Lane that was submitted as a trauma surgeon about general accidents, issue of the Algonquin kids driving through the intersection of Lyman and Bartlett, concerns once those roads have snow and ice with all the traffic and trucks. We have 250 kids during 180 school days of the year driving from Southborough. That's 90,000 trips past warehouses over the year. 1 month ago, we had someone miss the stop sign at Lyman and went into the guardrail, which is still flat on the ground over there. There are 2 traffic streams crossing each other, which adds more opportunity for accidents. That's at the Bartlett and Lyman intersection. There's another one, so this will add another wide turn entrance driveway into a 2-lane road. Ask concerns of the truck traffic from other 4 distribution warehouses along Bartlett, plus this, all from the intersection of Lyman and Bartlett, creates a zigzag traffic situation. Whatever tax revenue is gained from this misadventure can never make these entirely legitimate safety concerns less. He wanted to point out that the members of the planning board are directly responsible for the safety impact of these permitting decisions. And should any person be injured as a result of the dangerous series of intersections and large number of warehouses on Bartlett Street allowed by the planning board. There's families will certainly be able to look back on this public record to demonstrate the board was made fully aware of the obvious safety concerns of the project. I have, sorry, a couple more letters. I have a letter from Vanessa Aaliyah from Blueberry Lane. All similar issues that were covered in a previous letter. I have a letter, the letter that's asked to be read tonight is from John and Kate Ray at 3 Laurel Ave. Their letter states, it's come to my attention that a distribution center is being presented to be built off of Bartlett, which will impact the Aqueduct Trail. I'm firmly against this and disappointed that this even has the opportunity to be zoned for more distribution development. The amount of trucking and distribution development on Bartlett is disturbing. I moved here 9 years ago, and the amount of trucking traffic on Bartlett and Route 20 has increased by large multiples. I live on Laurel Ave, and my daughter's bedroom windows shake when cargo-loaded 18-wheelers rumble on Bartlett. The roads are not built to handle this, and is no longer safe to walk on Bartlett, Lyman, or Cedar Hill. The aqueducts provide recreation for residents with the Northborough Trail System, the recent Burroughs Loops connection, and bikers. The distribution centers are choking our town out. This has a direct negative consequence on the community and the quiet enjoyment of our town. I'm shocked that Northborough has decided to invest in the town in such a manner. We are well on our way to becoming one of the largest trucking distribution networks in the state, and allowing land sellers to do this on top of our neighborhoods, Algonquin High School, and our trail system. Everything points to allowing continued distribution centers as social bads and not in the best interest of town residents. We have 2 mega facilities that have recently finished and are unoccupied on Bartlett. Have we done the traffic and safety studies? This is in the middle of the neighborhoods in our high school. What's the long-term effect on residential real estate market in the area? None of this is good for residents. And one last letter from Kristen Wickstead, 2 Stirrup Lane. She has some questions about the catch basins and holding ponds. Where will the water go? Will they end up going into Stirrup Brook? Will the catch basins freeze in the winter? That's a good question. Will letting the runoff from a parking lot drain into Stirrup Brooks, will that potentially poison our water supply backup plan? Had questions about snow. What happens when the designated snow area is full? If we have a winter that has a lot of snow. Will snow removal from a 5-acre truck parking lot mean that the highway road salt coming in from vehicles will then end up in the water? Will we have big polluted snowbanks draining off into groundwater? Had questions about the drainage report and asked if we have a licensed professional civil engineer with no possibility to profit from the development of this site. I think a previous point was made that the drainage report was submitted from a consultant from the applicant. And with appropriate experience to review the plan to develop this land. That was it. That's all. Do we have any other letters that come in, Kathy? That's all I had. That's it? Okay. In addition to these letters, I think there are people on the line. I want to make sure I leave some time for public comment. If you do have a comment, I just need you to state your name and address. And we're going to try to, I don't know if there are a lot of people's comments, but I see a lot of people on the line. So I just want to make sure, just be mindful of time and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or so. So I'm going to go, let's see, I have Ann Beckstrom. I think I bowled you in last time. And
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi Ann.
Oh, hi, sorry, I didn't have my headset on the first time, so I wasn't able to speak. My name is Ann Beckstrom, and I live at 152 Bartlett Street on the corner of Bartlett and Lyman. And this is the first time I'm seeing the site plan. I'm sorry about that. And so I'm not really understanding where the driveway is coming out in relation to Lyman Street. Can you familiarize me, please, with that driveway and where it's coming out?
If I'm not mistaken, it's directly across the street from Lamy, the landscaping place.
Okay, so it's a little bit further up the road. Okay, and I liked your commentary around you would attempt to educate the truck drivers to turn towards Marlboro as opposed to coming down Bartlett Street towards Route 20 and or down Lyman Street. I can personally attest to the traffic that is at this corner. And it's a very small country road. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And the trucks that do turn onto Lyman Street very often have to stop car traffic in order to make that turn. And it's really not designed for that truck traffic. And the noise from the trucks using their Jake brakes and grinding through their great gears, going through that stop sign is very, very impactful on my quality of life and the whole neighborhood. So everything that was said in those letters previously, I have to say that I'm 100% in agreement with the points that were made there around the impact of all of these warehouses and all of the development on Bartlett Street, and you know, all the forest that's been decimated already. I'm very concerned with the truck noise from the warehouse, where we hear banging all the time from up the street, Dewey Pile, FedEx, and I'm just really, you know, fed up. I think the people that came to Northborough came to live in a you know, country suburban setting and not into a city industrial park setting. So anything that you could, if this is approved, and I would be very appreciative of anything that could be done to prohibit trucks from coming down Lyman and down Bartlett towards the school. I know I've been told already that it's very unenforceable, but because I don't think these other companies were supposed to allow truck traffic to come this way, but it happens continually, all night, every day.
Okay. Thank you, Anne. Did you have is that it? Anything else?
No, that's basically it.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Okay, let's see. I have Brad Blanchett. Let's see, Brad. I think, can you hear us? Oh, we can't hear you.
No, there we go.
There you go.
Unmute myself.
Yep,
All
just your
right,
name
Brad.
and address.
Brad Blanchett, 6 Rodney Terrace. And I just want to preface my comments and questions stating that I am a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals in Northborough. However, I am not representing the Zoning Board of Appeals tonight. I do have quite a few questions and comments, and I will try to be as succinct as possible. First off, the subdivision piece, I know the applicant mentioned that it takes time to develop, but this street is a hot spot right now. I mean, we're seeing warehouses popping up left and right. And the neighbors going towards Northborough have had enough. I've heard this as a member of zoning, and just listening to the letters and listening to the previous comment, they've had enough. And so subdividing this, I think people may jump on this. Also, I think it's a way to lessen their tax base impact, because they could say, well, this isn't buildable, so we want this subdivided. And so I think they're just trying to lessen their tax impact. Also, I know the last week, or this past Saturday during the town meeting, by right, these are allowed, but the town has spoken, and these aren't favorable, or the members or the residents of town aren't in favor. So I don't want to say I want to make this as difficult as possible, but the fact that they want to subdivide, they want an access road, I think something has to give here. As far as, if you do approve the access road, you have to put conditions in that they have to go through Lyman, Cedar Hill, Hayes Memorial, or don't approve the access road. And I mean, through the conservation land, because by right, they have that frontage. Maybe they can do something through that. I think that we're just bending over backwards for these warehouses. I know this isn't a great plot of land, but I think they're asking a little too much, and the residents of Northborough have had enough. Not to mention the fact that they're going over an aqueduct and they are dangerously close. I don't know if they're completely on groundwater one, but they are really, really close. And I know we don't use those wells anymore, but they are something that we have in our back pocket as a town in case for emergency. So I think they're asking a lot, and I think enough's enough.
Okay, anything else, Brad?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have John Wickstead. Oops, you should be allowed to talk now, John.
There, can you hear me?
Oh, yep, hello.
So I'll keep my comments brief. I did submit a letter to the board regarding my many safety concerns on this. You know, I've spent 11 years on staff at UMass Memorial, and I've been for 5 years now an assistant professor at Harvard Medical School. And my entire professional career has been taking care of trauma victims. And, you know, I've taken care of way too many teenage kids who were badly injured in car accidents to possibly count. And we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids from Southborough driving back and forth on that road every day. And I, for one, you know, it's sad to point this out, but when you drive from Northborough to Southborough along that road, I've seen enough flower-strewn memorials on that road. The amount of traffic on that road and the number of kids we got driving there makes this a dangerous situation. And, you know, I would just point out to the board that the safety impact of these permitting decisions is serious and longstanding, and God forbid somebody gets injured on that road. I'd hate to have them look back on this and see that we had an opportunity to change this and we didn't. The second point that I would make is that we have groundwater protection areas for a reason. I mean, these were put in place to protect groundwater, and providing special permits to get around that zoning completely is counterintuitive to the fact that we have these laws in the first place. You know, this is right on top of Stirrup Brook. It is literally hundreds of feet along Stirrup Brook that runs along this warehouse. And if we think that Stirrup Brook isn't going to be impacted by this, it's ludicrous. Of course, Stirrup Brook is going to be impacted by this, and it's going to be impacted badly. This is not good for the brook, and it's not good for Northborough. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Okay, I have for Maselli. Oops, are you?
There you go, unmute. How's that?
Oh, yeah, hello. Just your name and address to start.
Lisa Maselli, 13 Maple Street. I am also on the design review committee and have seen the plans. And I wanted to check on a couple things. We had discussed about a trucks no right turn at this driveway exit. And I was under the assumption that that was actually going to be put in at the time we were at those meetings. Now I hear that it's going to be a suggestion for whoever it is that's going to be taking over the leasing of the space. I know that A. Dewey Pyle entered into an agreement that they were not going to be using the Bartlett and Maple and Ridge and Lyman. And they pretty much stated that. The few times that they've been on our roads, they've been told not to, and they don't come back. But all the other warehouses use the roads more and more every day. Even though we have signs that have a restriction on Maple in Collins, you'll still see trucks coming down every day. I think that this is a bad practice. We've got so many warehouses down there on Bartlett. We're combining them with residential neighborhoods that are beautiful, and a high school with children driving to school back and forth. I think it's a bad place for this, and I agree with everybody else that's spoken earlier today. So those are my comments.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lisa. Oh, go ahead.
Carrie, can I?
Oh, yeah, please do. Michelle.
So Lisa is correct. That was a condition of the design review that all traffic we requested to go to the left out to 495, and we did talk about significant signage. I'll go on the record. I have been asking, I don't know how many years, at least 5 years now, maybe more, with letters to the Board of Selectmen to put lighting along that street because I feel I've driven it. It's really dangerous with the dark. There's no lights out there, especially there's only lights illuminating from the Federal Express facility. And I believe this applicant agreed to put 1 or 2 lights on their property so that we could get some semblance of the beginning of street lights out there to make it a little safer. So I don't know where that stands on that. I do agree. I was on the planning board when A. Dewey Powell came in. We agreed that A. Dewey Powell would only come down Bartlett Street onto Route 20 only if it had a delivery in downtown Northborough. And I believe that as good stewards, they've actually adhered to that. And we see very little A. Dewey Powell trucks downtown Northborough unless they're making a delivery along that route to any businesses. However, things are significantly different with Federal Express trucks. At that time, we were told that we were not allowed to make that condition with Federal Express trucks. And all the Federal Express trucks do is come from their facility over in Shrewsbury off of 140, cut down Church Street, which is where I live, go downtown, and then cut over to Bartlett Street. So it's just as some of the other concerned residents were saying, it is true that we're creating a Northborough as a warehousing community with a lot of significant traffic. And I would not say that was part of the master plan that we just ended, but it was something that was of concern that was certainly I brought up and other people have brought up, especially the darkness of Bartlett Street. From the time you get to Algonquin all the way out, it is just too dark with all those trucks going up and down the street. And it gets dark at 4 p.m. in the fall months when all the kids are out. So I've requested from the Board of Selectmen and they have denied the request for streetlights. So this applicant agreed to put in, if I'm correct, 2. And I would hope that if it does go forward, those 2 streetlights will at least be there to the beginning of lighting up that street.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. I have Michael. I'm sorry, Michelle. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, I have Michael. Hold on. So Michael, you're using older version of Zoom, so I'm gonna have to promote you to a panelist. So I hope you don't have a presentation prepared. Okay, are you able to speak? Oh, we can't hear you yet. Oh, let's see, Michael, let's find you in here. Oh, all right, so Michael, you don't have to be on video, but I just need you to speak. Do you want to speak? Do you have something to say about this application?
Okay, there we are. You can hear me now?
I can, yeah.
Oh, okay, great. I'll help you with the name, Michael Burnswag, 4 Jenkins Drive here in Northborough. I live here with my wife, Rachel, and our 2 school-age daughters. I'll be honest, we have one of the closest abutting properties to this proposed development at 0 Bartlett Street, just abutting Stirrup Brook. And as opposed to the previous project, I have to say this project at any of the levels sounds like a disaster. My kids are here with me tonight, and there's nothing more important in life than instilling honesty and integrity. And after hearing what we've heard tonight, it makes me realize this is a wonderful learning lesson for them. I do want to cover a few points, as this is really concerning to our family. First off, I want to go on the record as saying that we have not received any abutters notification on this project. And I will say that as noted in the planning board rules and regulations published on the Northborough site, we do fall under the abutters. So I don't see that. Maybe you see something different. I don't know. but at many levels, groundwater protection. We have the Stirrup Brook. We have all of the other water implications, the wetlands, Bartlett Pond, the aqueducts. Safety issues, noise, lighting, the wildlife implications. I can't think of a worse place to put a project like this. It's very concerning. I will add in one final point, which I think was brought up by the board at the beginning. I think we heard in their own words that by dividing this lot, the intended use that all of the plans have been submitted under and any of the approvals that have been received thus far by Mr. Lopez and Mr. Robinson in their own words sound materially different than what we're talking about here tonight. So that is concerning to me. I do just want to end by noting that on behalf of the residents of Stirrup Brook Estates, I would like officially to respectfully request a delay in the hearing decision as the neighbors consultants of our community at Stirrup Brook are reviewing the documents and have not been able to complete the review due to COVID-19 and the pandemic state of emergency. So at the end of the meeting, I would like to ask a member of the committee to make a motion to extend this courtesy to the residents at this time. Thank you.
Oh, Michael, could you please confirm your address?
4 Jenkins Drive.
4 Jenkins Drive. Kathy, thank you very much, Michael. I'm going to change it back to an attendee here. Kathy, is that address on the official abutters list?
No, I just, as he was speaking, I just checked the certified abutters list from our assessor's office, and that his address is not within 300 feet of the property line.
Okay, so we're in our rules and regs, we send out abutters notifications to a 300 foot radius. Is that right?
Yes, yep, within 300 feet of the property line.
Okay, got it. Okay. So if somebody thinks they're within that and should have received it, where can they double check that? It's just the assessor's office?
Yes.
Okay. So Michael, I put you back on the other side, but that's worth checking at the assessor's office then. If you believe to be an abutter to the property and did not receive a letter, it's not showing on the official records. I guess, is that what you'd call it, Kathy?
Yes, the abutters have to, as part of their submission, submit a certified list of abutters. They don't do it themselves. The town prepares the list, and the town certifies that for each board, it's sometimes it's a different radius, but for planning board, it's within 300 feet.
Got it.
So they certify who that, and prepare that list and mailing labels for the planning board.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, I have Rachel Burnswig up, and you are on an older version, so I'm going to promote you to a panelist as well. Okay, all right, Rachel, you're able to speak if you'd like.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Rachel Burnswig, 4 Jenkins Drive. Michael's my husband. So in addition to everything else that everybody has said, I wanted to also agree that the implications of warehouse are very concerning. Already we are woken up in the middle of the night at all times hearing truck traffic, the semis going by, engaging their brakes, shifting, just the rumbling noise. But the other question that I have is that the parking lot that I look at is going to be pretty close to my property, probably within 400, 500 feet. And light pollution and noise pollution are very concerning topics. In the wintertime, when there's snow, there's going to be snow plowing. It could be several times during the course of the night that they are going to have to be clearing the property in order to keep it snow free. The plows dropping, the backup alerts going on throughout the night. And that's without foliage to buffer any of that noise in the winter. And then the other concern is also the light traffic, the light pollution. Again, we are in the southwest corner of that property where the parking lot would be. And so concerns regarding the light coming off of that parking lot, especially during the winter months when we have winter is a lot earlier, the day evening starts earlier, are my concerns. And then, of course, Stirrup Brook is a huge implication. It's such a natural resource to Northborough. And I'm concerned about what happens when the snow catches fill up. Where is that snow going to go? Are we going to get melt water from the snowbanks with salt and other pollutants going into groundwater, going into the lake, which is going into the brook, which is very small as it is. So it wouldn't be able to dilute that amount of pollutants. So also going on the record to log those concerns as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, I'm going to take 6 more comments. It looks like that's the end of them here. We end about 9:30, so I want to make sure I let everyone talk, but also make sure we get to discuss and figure out what the next steps are. So I have Genevieve on the line. Genevieve?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Genevieve Penny, and I live at 103 Bartlett Street, which is very, very close to this site. I'm new to the city. I just moved here a month ago. And aside from echoing what other people said about especially the streetlights, the darkness of this road, and the possible pollutants and things, the home that I live in actually has well water. It's one of the older homes in the area, so that is a concern that actually didn't occur to me until somebody mentioned it. But the biggest concern that I see is with the amount of semi-truck traffic being added to Bartlett Street. So just the other day, I was at the corner of Route 20 and Bartlett Street. I was taking a right coming from downtown Northborough, and there was a truck in front of me, a FedEx truck, turning right, and another truck, these are the semi trucks, going straight through. And I think like these roads are so narrow, and these trucks require so much space to make a safe turn. So the truck actually goes into the lane of the oncoming traffic in order to make a right-hand turn, for instance. And I was in no rush, so I let these trucks go and things, and I was the only person on the road. But school is closed. COVID is happening. There's not many people on the road now, but school is going to begin eventually, and Bartlett Street is going to be packed with buses, school buses that similarly need to make these wide turns, and of course teenagers with cars, which they're inherently dangerous by themselves. Adding more semi trucks to this road is a very, very, very bad idea. I think everyone already has said that, or at least thought it. So I just want to echo what everyone else has said about all the other points. There's no point in repeating it, but I wanted to throw in a little comment.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Genevieve. Okay, I have Steve Shaw. What's happening here? Oh, hold on. Okay, Steve, you should be able to talk now.
All right, thank you. My name is Steve Shaw. I am a resident at 4 Stirrup Brook Lane, part of the Stirrup Brook Estates that abuts this property, and I'll be as brief as I can. I think I share a lot of the sentiments of the other residents that have chimed in here as well. And I just want to reiterate the point that we're discussing issuing a special permit making an exception, right? Because there's a project in front of us that's being proposed to be built on groundwater protected area. I mean, this is absurd. As my neighbor earlier spoke to, those things were set in place for a reason. And making exceptions doesn't make any sense, right? I took a look at this drainage report, and I think you brought it up at some point during the session. That thing's 200 pages long. And it was submitted by the company, or by a company that the proposals of this site, funded. I'd be a little bit concerned about, the review of that document and its thoroughness by the planning board, town engineers, or, perhaps an outside party that does not have any vested interest in this project to assess the viability of such a massive project. This plan involves 9+ acres that are going to be bulldozed over, covered with pavement or a roof. Now, where's that water going? I think it would be a big mistake by this board, by this town, to just rubber stamp something like this without having a trained professional thoroughly review the exception that's being asked here. And that's on top of all of the other concerns around noise, light pollution, and other things with this project. I heard it earlier. Someone made the point that this is turning into a warehouse and distribution town. And if that's the case, that will be a sad day for Northborough. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay, I have Brian Gwynn on the phone. Brian, I think we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Brian Gwynn and I live at 6 Jenkins Drive. And I'd like to state that I really object to this distribution centre being built here on Bartlett Street. All the neighbours around here have watched these monstrosities slowly marching down Bartlett Street over the past few years towards our communities and our schools, and it's really time that it stopped. The noise from these trucks loading and unloading is going to be unbearable to the people who live close to them. And also the pollution from these vehicles is going to be significant to the surrounding rivers and to the wetlands. And no mitigation can minimize the risk of an environmental disaster. And also, of course, these trucks are belching out thousands of tons of carbon dioxide over time, going against the state low carbon economy targets that this town supports. So this is all happening, of course, right next to our homes and our schools. So like my neighbor, Mr. Shaw said, I also request that the town take an independent review of this permit. And then also with regard to traffic, what is the town going to do to prevent all these large trucks from traveling down Bartlett Street? I heard somebody say that they're going to ask the drivers to try and go a different way. Well, that's just not good enough. They need to be prevented and barred from going in that direction. And I've witnessed myself many drivers either blindly following their satellite navigation systems or just trying to take a shortcut. I've even seen them driving down Allen Street, which is a tiny little street that links East Main Street with Hudson Street. But then you've got the trucks also coming the other way off the highways and off Route 20, coming into this area, and it really is a safety hazard. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Okay, I have Linda Kim.
Hello, can you
Oh, hi,
hear me?
Linda. Yeah, we
Yeah,
can.
yeah, hi. I'm Linda and I live in 127 Bartlett Street. And I've been living in Northborough for 30 years and I raised my 3 kids here. Northborough was a quite safe and good town. It was a quiet town. But unfortunately, this town became so noisy and unsafe. The noise from the truck, the huge trucks makes, it's extremely disturbing me, even early in the morning, 5 o'clock. And I feel like I'm sitting right next to highway. Sometimes I can, middle of the night, I can hear it. I don't know. I mean, this is getting worse. And if the board members, if you allow the mega building, soccer field and warehouse, if you keep approve, they can build that mega buildings around, you are losing this safe community. I think it's on your shoulder. You're supposed to protect the Northborough, very safe town, as community which is very safe. And then as the residential community, it's not a warehouse town. I feel like I'm middle of the warehouse. I am 127 Bartlett Street. It's maybe I'm the last abutter. So you have to take it seriously because last a couple of years, and actually last several years, I attended 2-3 meetings. It's the same reason, same kind of this kind of meeting. But at the time, me and my husband was the only one or another couple. That was it. People didn't really consider how bad it's gonna turning into. Like this Monster town, it's turning into Monster quiet, no more quiet town. It's a very, very noisy town. You are turning into, because of the board member, if you are not taking seriously about these issues, how the Northborough residential community turning into this warehouse town, then where are we heading to? Do you think we feel safe? I mean, when my kids were young, it was a quiet town. Even they drive out the end of my driveway very quietly without any worrisome. But fortunately, they are all out of that age. So they went college, so they were fine now. But I'm thinking about other residents right next to Jenkins or the next neighbors. They have so many little kids. The cars are driving so fast on this corner. Even they said, oh, speed limit should be lowered. That's not the answer. That is not answer. Priority is we shouldn't allow this town as a warehouse town or soccer field or the truck will be running everywhere. The kids are going in and out of school. So I think our prioritization has been changed. So bring this town, Northborough, back to, of course, it's not going to go back to normal Northborough like before, but at least try to keep as good as now. Keep it safe and quiet. And traffic, you have to stand there in the corner of Lyman Street or Bartlett Street or Cedar Hill Street just to check it out one day. Just to check it out for experiment. How many cars are heading out, what the speed limit, and how the trucks are turning that narrow road. How many people you are going to put it in danger? You are pushing people out from Northborough. I don't want that happen. I want to live in Northborough. That's my word.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Those are great comments.
Thank you.
Okay, I have just a couple more here. I have Kristen Wickstead.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Hi, I'm Kristen Wickstead, 2 Stirrup Brook Lane. So I actually walked down past Linda's house today from my house because I'm right on the corner of Bartlett Street. So I hear all the trucks too. And it's not just the noise of them going past the house, it's also the beep, beep, beep when they back up, which is a really wonderful safety thing, but not when everybody between you and the FedEx plant and the Dewey Pile plant are cutting down all the trees, which are the only sound barrier between your house and the trucks that are already beeping. So more beeping trucks and fewer trees is a really bad idea. But also, the Stirrup Brook Trail, on the map that we're looking at here, all the green areas are sort of fuzzy. And earlier they were showing a further back view, which would be nice to see. And I see all these different, these zones and everything. And I realized that the Conservation Commission sort of bargained for one little section of that, the back of your lot H, I guess it is. But if you go down the Stirrup Brook Trail, which I did this afternoon with my son to take some video, you can stand right by the brook and listen to it bubbling. And right across, well, you can walk across it right now because there's not much water. But you can see all the little plastic flags on the trees, which I assume is you guys marking your territory. Is that what that is?
Are the flags out, the plastic flags, boundaries or?
Pink and blue, and they're all over the whole, like if you walk down the Stirrup Brook Trail now towards, well, from Bartlett Street, all to your right there, the whole forest has pink and blue flags all through. I assume as some kind of property markers or something.
One second question. Dave, do you have the answer to that?
Yes, this is David Robinson with Allen and Major Associates. So what those are what we call flaggings. They're wetlands delineation lines. So we have a certified wetland scientist. Prior to us, doing any conceptual design, the first thing that we do is we have a wetland scientist. In this case, it was Goddard Consulting. Goddard's based right in Northborough. They do a ton of work in Marlborough, in the boroughs areas. And they're our go-to sub-consultant. So what they do is they go out and they delineate where the wetlands are, the riverfront area, and they hang those flags and then number them. And conservation mandates that we keep those flags hanging all during construction so that everybody knows where the wetlands lines are and nobody's going to inadvertently disturb them. So that's what those are. And they are mandated by conservation to remain hanging through construction. If one gets taken down or ripped or you can't read the number, we'll send Goddard out there to fix those. But those are for the protection of the wetlands.
Okay, so just to follow up then, so the flags that are right next to the Stirrup Brook that I took pictures of this afternoon, does that mean that you it's protected right at the edge of the brook, but just because it's supposed to be 100 feet or something between the actual water in the brook and where you're allowed to build? So that's just it's right at the bank. It's basically the bank of the stream.
Yep, that's exactly right. So they go out and they flag any resources on site. On this site, we have both wetlands and riverfront. So for wetlands, they'll go around and they'll flag where they think the edge of the wetland line is, and that's based on hydric indicators such as the soil as well as vegetative indicators. What you're referring to, I believe, are the riverfront flags. Those are flagged at the mean annual high water line of the Stirrup Brook. Typically, those are closer to the brook than the wetlands flags, and the wetlands flags are typically you see a little bit further away. So I believe,
well, there are pink ones and blue ones. Do you know the difference?
I want to say, let's see, I walked the entire line. I will say it is vetted by conservation. We walked the entire line and looked at all several hundred flags. I want to say that the blue are the riverfront and the pink are the wetlands.
Okay, because in certain spots, they're right next to each other. And
That's typical. That's typical when the mean annual high water line approximates that of the wetlands line, and they can coincide. And sometimes they're 100 feet apart. Sometimes they're right up on top of each other. But those were delineated by a professional wetland scientist and then confirmed in the field by conservation. And we did end up changing only 1 or 2 flags on the opposite side of where you were. So basically conservation agreed with what Goddard Consulting had flagged out there.
yeah, I think conservation liked the idea that you gave them a bunch of land somewhere else, but they definitely are letting you build very close to the stream. So, okay, that's all I want to say. Thanks for answering my questions.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask, just in the interest of time, if you still, actually, there's one more person that's had their hand up for a really long time and was in my account when I originally included it, and that is Carter Brannon. If you have a couple, if you have a brief point you'd like to make.
I just wanted to, first, regarding the Aqueduct Trail and it crossing that, the driveway crossing it, and just any safety concerns that may come from trucks and people walking in the trail. Second is just, I'm a little bit confused about why, this same developer keeps building these or getting permits for these warehouses without any tenants in them when there already are other warehouses that haven't been filled yet. And then finally, I just wanted to, noticing that the applicant has received a lot of kind of negative comments today, and I just wanted to acknowledge that it does seem that given the conservation land and care for the wetlands and stuff, it does look like the applicant has tried very hard to minimize the environmental impact of this whole industrial project they've been doing for the past 20 years, and thank them for that.
Great, thanks, Carter. Okay, so what I'm going to do for everybody else who has their hand up, I'm going to lower your hand, and then what I'd like is if anybody has a point to make that hasn't already been made, so hold on a second, I'm lowering your hand. So if anybody has a point that hasn't already been made, that you would like to have the time to make a quick comment, I'd like to hear your comment, but if it's something that's already covered, you don't necessarily have to cover it again. Right here tonight. Is there any, so now everybody's hands have been lowered. Is there anyone who'd like to share something that hasn't been communicated? Okay, I have one person. Let's see, I have 2 people. So I'm going to have the last 2 comments here, and then we're going to have to move along. Oops, I'm sorry. So I have 3 quick comments. Okay, so Jean, I think that's you. Anything that hasn't already been expressed tonight? Hi, Jean, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, how are you? So basically, I moved in, I live in 1 Jenkins Drive, my wife and 2 kids, young kids. So I'm not sure if you guys covered, but moved to Northborough, beautiful place, 2011. Absolutely love the town. Since then, you guys build up the FedEx and build up another right across it. And we noticeably can see that the traffic picked up, pollution most likely picked up due to traffic constantly driving. It's very loud. Our family absolutely doesn't like it. So when we found out about this new construction being proposed, that makes us very unhappy. With 2 kids, we've got, like I said, our property stays right on Bartlett and 1 Jenkins, which is right in the corner, and it's getting real loud. It takes almost 5 to 10 minutes to get out of the house sometimes because traffic in the morning is ridiculous. Trucks, buses. I get the school buses, that's the school. But along with everything, we're adding more traffic, more pollution, and that just, to me, that's unacceptable. We moved into the beautiful town, everybody loved it, and now it becomes a commercial. And I don't see the reason why, half empty warehouses that we already see built, and you need another huge warehouse to be built again, without this one even have filled in, and I haven't even seen anything yet. A lot of lights, a lot of distractions, a lot of traffic, pollution, and it's very loud. And the biggest thing, like I said, what I completely hate is to get out of my house to get to any place. If I have to take a left to Bartlett, it literally take me 5 to 10 minutes just to get out of my driveway, just because it's so polluted. I'm not polluted, so busy. And that's basically what I'm trying to say is our family and our neighborhood is very much against this proposal.
Okay, thank you, Gene.
Can I just ask what his last name was and what his address was?
Oh, I'm sorry, did we miss it?
Yeah.
Do you mind? You're just your
Yeah,
name
it's,
and rank.
first name is Gene, last name is Eisenstadt, 1 Jenkins Drive, Northborough, Mass.
Thank you.
All right, great.
Barry, can I give a just a brief clarity on something here?
Who's talking? Hold on, I can't
Bob
see.
Federico.
Oh, hi, Bob. Okay.
Hi. There's been a few comments about the warehouses that are currently being built being vacant. I'd like to offer an update on that, just so that everybody is on the same page. 301 Bartlett Street is the first one that went in, which kind of sits down on the hollow, is fully occupied right now. The facility that was built on Hayes Memorial Drive, there is currently a tenant going through the permitting process to take over just about the entire building. And I got today for one of the larger buildings on the top of the hill next to FedEx that is due to be completed within the next week or two. I got a preliminary inquiry about what it would take to permit to build out the entire building. So the buildings are being built, but they're by no means vacant in terms of, activity and people looking to move into them. I just wanted to make that clarification because there seems to be a lot of comments saying we've got these giant buildings going up and they're holding nothing but air. There's more activity than what people are seeing at this point. I just wanted to make that clarification.
That's good to know. Bob, what is the, is it 300 on the hill? Is that 300 Bartlett up on the hill there?
There's 330 and 350.
Oh, okay.
There were two warehouses. They're 330,000 square feet each.
Got it. Okay. All right. That's good
All right.
clarification. Thank you. Okay. So again, just anything that hasn't already been stated and as brief as you possibly can, I have Jeff Turgeon.
Thanks, Jeff Turgeon, Turgeon from 5 Thayer Street in Northborough. So I'm actually a bit across town. I'm very pro-business and love the concept of smart growth. I do question, however, a project that needs a special variance on protected land. If you're gonna, I see you guys as our gatekeepers for the town, and really holding a sacred trust. Once this land gets built upon, you're changing it forever, and that's fair for that happens, right? That's how growth works. However, obviously, this is special land. It's been set aside for special purpose because of the natural need that's there, right? So I agree with some previous people about the concept of making sure that before you take this step, that it's the right step. I would say this. It seems to me a warehouse is not the highest best use of this property. Typically speaking, for that square footage, the number of jobs that are available and the pay of those jobs is typically pretty weak compared to other facilities of that size that would, have potential for, say, high quality STEM jobs. So my fear is you're selling a special piece of property on the cheap for potentially quick short-term gain, but long-term loss for our community. And for that reason, I'd say be very wary of this. And warehousing jobs are not exactly the highest best use for this special property. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, we just have one left here, and that is Brad Blanchett. Brad?
Yep, Brad Blanchett, 6 Rodney Terrace. I spoke early on, and I touched upon a lot of topics. One of the things that I do want to reiterate is the fact the subdivision. I think it's for lack of a better term, a ploy for them to not pay as high taxes on the property if they're subdividing, and half of the lot cannot be developed upon. I think it's just something that they're trying to circumvent, and I just wanted to bring that up again. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brad. Okay, so that looks like we covered, yep, that is everybody. I'm just making sure. Okay, I think we allowed everyone who needed to make a point or a point that had not already been made has been given a chance to speak. So I'm going to go back to the board and just ask for comments from the board. Now, we also have, we got to keep our eye on the clock as well, timing wise. Kathy, when do they shut us down? When do they just turn the lights off?
Well, 9:30 is the time frame that the Zoom committee who's recording all of these has asked for.
Okay. So let's
So
see.
you're
We
3
have,
minutes away.
okay. So why don't we get a few initial reactions from board members just to see where we stand here, what we need to do for our next steps. So why don't Millie, I can see you first, so I will call on you first.
Yeah, I think that it's a lot to take in. The residents made a lot of really good points that I think I would like to consider some time to digest some of the things. I have some questions based on some of the things that they brought up. I do want to make the point that it is zoned industrial, so we have some limitations as to what we can or cannot put in there. I think there are some counterpoints to consider based on their concerns and plans and what we'd like to do and what the applicant has already done. So I think we have a lot of discussions.
Okay, Anthony, I see you next on the lineup.
So I think a lot of great comments and observations, but I mean, my main concerns going into this meeting or even before is the environmental impact, groundwater, and traffic. And I know that we've gone through Concom and we've gone through groundwater, but I think this is the impact could be so great, especially with Stirrup Brook. And I've used that trail hundreds of times, and it just seems like the building's gonna be awfully close to Stirrup Brook. I think it would be best suited for us as a board to have an independent review of at least for me, of those 3 topics: environmental impact, traffic, and groundwater. Just to get a different look on this from what's already been evaluated.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Michelle?
Oh, sorry, Michelle. Yep, I just
Hi.
heard from Anthony, but yep, we'll zoom right
Yeah,
to
I'll
you.
be quick because I
Yep.
know you're on the clock.
No problem.
So I'm probably the longest member of the board here, and being on for so many years, you see a lot of things over the years. And for me, this project from the beginning, I always felt was like a square peg going in a round hole. Trying to do everything possible to get that building to fit into that site. It reminds me, like, my biggest thing, as a planning board member, I think we rely on the Conservation Commission and groundwater for an advisory committee to help us navigate through the environmental impacts. I like Anthony's idea about an independent person coming in and just looking at the big picture of it all. But as I've said for years, I've gone on record, and you can go back and look at all the planning board minutes about my concern about that area being so severely built out with all of these warehouses. And when Stop and Shop came before us to go to downtown Northborough, we as a community learned pretty quickly about the puddle effect. And I know that puddle effect because I see it when I live on Howard Street, when I come out of on Church Street. I see those Federal Express trucks come off of 495 right down, and then the congestion happens. And my concern is, one of the residents says, even though your ownership can change, you've allowed it in, and you've created this environment that I really think traffic-wise is going to have a huge impact over the town over the next 5 years. I've never seen so much traffic come out of Howard Street, truck traffic, and it's all going up to Bartlett Street. And we've created this, and I think the question to the board now is, how do we slow it down, and how do we go back to the master plan and see whether this actually fits in? I understand that the use is allowed, but there's been a lot of allowances for this property to get in there environmentally. And like I said, I've even went on record with the design review and everything about the traffic. Huge concerns about that. I think it's just going to increase over time.
Okay. Anything else, Michelle?
No, and my solution, which has gone on deaf ears, which is try to get some lights out there to help with the young drivers and everything along that roadway. My daughter has been out of Algonquin for 7 years now. And I used to, when she was in high school, go up that street because she was a lifeguard in Marlboro. And that was when Federal Express was going in. And I'll tell you, at night, that was scary. There were some of those trucks up there. That was 7 years ago. And we're now building it out more and more. And nothing has changed as far as public safety up there. And I find it frustrating as a board member when I made those comments 7 or 8 years ago.
Mhm. Okay, Amy.
I just want to thank all the people who came out and spoke. It sounds they had a lot of good comments, and like Millie, I have to digest a lot. But I do think that Anthony and Michelle had a lot of good comments too. So I know it's late, so there's nothing we can probably do tonight, but I definitely think we need to continue this and talk about a peer review. I think that's a really good idea. I did go to all the conservation meetings, and they actually considered a peer review. And even Mia said it wouldn't be bad to have a second set of eyes look at this. And I know in the end they didn't, but I really think that we should, if we go forward with this, do a peer review. But as far as tonight, I definitely think we need to continue and talk about this at our next meeting.
Okay. Any additional comments from the staff? Can't see everybody. No. Okay. I mean, it is a lot to digest. I have a lot of concerns with the current traffic report, just not giving a true reflection. I think based on the sensitivity levels to the traffic, I don't think it's wise to look at just a generic percentage increase when, and in fact, Bob's mentioned that we do have some tenants now, so we should have some better data at a minimum. Bob, just in general, clarification. If applications or however it works are going in now, timeline-wise, is that typical? Someone would be in there within like 90 days, or is that a year-long process? What does that look like from the first, time they call your office?
It kind of all depends. 301 Bartlett Street, that went in, all three tenants within, I think, probably within about a year after they finished building the shell. The Hayes Memorial Drive, I think they're looking at 1 or 2 tenants. One of the tenants is going to have to do an extensive upgrade to the sprinkler system. So that's going to take a little extra time, but that is currently in the building permit process. It's under review. The other uses up on the top of the hill at 330 Bartlett Street, they did not tell me what type of operation they were going to be looking at, since they have not applied for anything yet. And it's a warehouse situation. Part of their permitting process will be coming to you for special permit as a result of the town meeting last week. So it's kind of a moving target in terms of how long it takes to get these vehicles up and in there. And even once they're in there running, excuse me, it could take them time, a fair amount of time for their operation to get up to speed, outside of the building and the tenant fit out process. So it's, in short, it's an answer I can't give you.
Okay, that's all right. I just
Okay.
was curious, like if, could we expect better data in X period of time? It sounds like it's too difficult to really give an answer. That's fine.
Yeah.
So just bottom line, I guess, traffic wise, I definitely feel like I need more information there. I struggle with not feeling like I have a full picture of everything on the table. And I realize that things are separate and I'm trying to keep that separate in my mind, but I still have that feeling that I just don't have the full picture of what this is going to look like in the end, what the anticipated project is. I feel like, there's half a story here, and I realize that we're not here to discuss any other plans, but, I'd almost like to know, is there some sort of analysis that could, project what if we completely max out this property? What happens to the wetlands? What happens to those, all the drainage? How does the drainage report change? Someone mentioned I saw that online too. It was like 227 pages. Of course, it's all Greek to me, that report. But Fred obviously helps us. Does a great job, actually. Fred does a great job helping to navigate through those things. But for this intensity, I feel like I'm not personally prepared to make a decision tonight. It sounds like the board isn't prepared to make a decision tonight. I don't know, Kathy, to continue if we would need to put a specific plan in place, or we're able to just, continue back and continue this discussion about the merits of an independent analysis, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, you can certainly, your option is to continue the public hearing, because obviously you're in a public hearing.
Mhm.
So, you could continue the public hearing to your next meeting. Your next two meetings, you have a meeting on August 4th and a meeting on August 18th. August 4th, you'll be discussing, and we might even be able to schedule the interviews for the peer review on 425 Whitney Street, depending on responses are due on Thursday.
Mhm.
And then I'll, distribute those to the board. So we may even be able, depending on how many applications we get, we may even be able to conduct the interviews that evening if you want to do that. I don't know how the board wants to handle that, but anyways, your meetings are, your next two meetings are August 4th and August 18th.
Okay, so I'm on vacation on the 4th, although we do have a continued hearing that I will plan to participate, but don't plan on staying on the call. So I would prefer, if we were to continue, to go to the 18th. If we continue, do we need to have an agenda in advance or our reason for continuing is just continuing to research, look at the information?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're continuing to review, the information that was, the various questions that were presented to you tonight. I didn't really hear any questions from the board on the information that Gutierrez, had submitted. But yeah, we just need a time certain on August 18th. I also have scheduled it's not a public hearing, but it's a discussion with the board on the preliminary subdivision plan.
Mhm.
And that has to happen on the 18th, as you're running out of time to review that. With a preliminary plan, there's just a 45-day time frame. No, 35 days, I think. 45. And so that brings us right up to the like a few days after August 18th, when I had done out the schedule for you.
Okay, one other thing I wanted to see was, I just would like to read what the 8M permit says. If is Mia able to just provide that?
I'll forward those for you. Yeah, I mean that for you. Yep.
Okay, just out of curiosity. Okay, so why don't, it sounds like
the board overall has a lot of information to digest. Why don't we plan to continue to the 18th? Are we continuing to do the 6 p.m. meetings?
That's entirely up to you, what time you want to start. I mean, again, with being aware of, 9:30 stop time. I mean, I think starting at 6 makes more sense, but
And I assume that works for the applicant. I can't see you guys on my board here, but because you'll be there anyway for the other plan. Oops, I can't hear anybody.
Yes, that works.
Okay. Okay, so then why don't we get a motion to continue the hearing for Zero Bartlett special permit per groundwater protection overlay district bylaw and special permit site plan approval for August 18th at 6 p.m.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, first and second, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? I'm gonna do a roll call. Anthony,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Michelle,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
and Carrie is an aye. Okay, so the hearing will be continued to that date. Thanks, everybody, for staying on long, and we just have a couple more minutes of old business before we jump off. Is that okay, David Kane?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. David Kane just woke up. Okay.
Carrie, can I just ask you about, and maybe this is what you're going to cover. On August 4th, you had continued the public hearing for 425 Whitney Street,
Yes.
but there isn't really anything new. There isn't anything new for them to present. I mean, we're at the stage now where they've presented everything to you. The questions were put together in the request for proposals, and that's out. And like I said, hopefully we'll have at least a couple responses. Again, they're due on this Thursday, the 23rd.
Mhm.
So what is it? As far as continuing the hearing, what is it that that you all are anticipating happening on August 4th?
I believe that was just because we thought if we had interviews or anything like that, we wanted to keep it moving.
Okay.
If
Okay.
there's
So that,
nothing to do there, I assume we still have to open it and continue it again.
yes. But so why don't I just keep you posted as far as responses, and if we, hopefully we'll have some responses, and they'll get distributed to the board and we can take a look at them and then decide whether you want to do interviews on the 4th.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Either way, we have to continue on the 4th.
Yes, technically, yes.
And then even if we continue again, okay. Okay.
Any responses at all?
Excuse me?
Have you received any yet?
No.
Oh, wow. What happens if no one responds?
You have to reissue it, and you have to reissue it.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna skip over the minutes for tonight. I think we're still within range of a reasonable amount of time, although we did continue the minutes from why don't we just at least approve the minutes from 6/9, as I think that we continued to this week. I don't think there were any changes. The only change for me was a minor note about changing Mr. Martinek to Miss Martinek.
Actually, you approved 6/9.
Oh, we did?
Yes, yeah. So you have June 16th and July 7th.
Okay, so, and why don't, if the board doesn't oppose, can we pass over those until next meeting? Just for the time. Are there any A&Rs, lot releases, or bonds?
No.
Okay.
None of the above.
Just quickly for subcommittees, Michelle, you weren't here the last time, but Millie was going to try to join in on a couple of design review committee meetings. So Millie, have there been any yet?
Not that I'm aware of, but I don't know that I would get the notices for them.
No, I will, Millie. They haven't been any design review committee meetings, and we actually, I think a submittal came in today that's probably going to need design review. So I'll get to that in a couple days as far as setting up a meeting.
Okay.
ZBA applications, I think we looked at this the last time. It doesn't look like anything new on the ZBA application list.
Correct.
Okay, so I think unless there's any other business we need to discuss, I will take a motion to adjourn. Nobody wants to leave?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Okay, let's see. All in favor, Millie?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And Carrie is an aye. Great, thanks, everybody. Meeting's adjourned.